Okay, great.
All right, well, we'll get started then. So everyone has their data up, accessible, look something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's see, I want to take a look at someone's screen that has not, like mine has all this other stuff in it, so I want to see someone else's so we can kind of build what it should look like with all the toolbars and everything. And once you save it, it'll be there. That's kind of your setup, how it will be from now on. So it doesn't matter what data's in there, this just saves your map and kind of your template that you build. So let's see. Anyone have theirs ready to go? I can pick someone. How about, Ariel, how about we look at yours?
Okay.
All right. Easier for me to pick on yours and kind of tell everybody what it should look like.
Move it over so you can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So you do have your, we'll start off with all the toolbars you should have, so you can get kind of functioning here. List. So we have our standard is what you would need. That is the one, actually, let's see. So at the top, you have a blank page. As you hover it, you have a folder, a save button, and a print button. That is your standard toolbar. Everyone should have that one loaded in. It also has your zoom level, which you're currently at, and it shows you what level you're viewing at right this second. The next one you should have is called a layout. So if you want to right-click on the empty space in your toolbars, it'll give you an option of picking the layout toolbar, so you can add it to your map. So on the far end past the CrescentLink, somewhere out there in the white space in your toolbar area, if you right-click, so you should have layout. Yep, and it'll just dock itself. You hover over and put it wherever you want. Yeah. Same thing for, we'll need the draw toolbar. These are all useful things to have. You can have all kinds of things if you want, but these are the basics that we've come to use as a standard. Okay, and if you have a smaller screen like that, they're going to kind of stack up. As you throw one on there, it'll make another layer down into the map. So that's just how it'll go. So another one, next one will be labeling. You can also put things on the bottom of the map. There is a dock down there you can use as well. Something we've used there after, so with that labeling one, wherever you want to put it, I'll tell you as these things come up. So labeling, if you pull down the word labeling, it'll give you an option to use a certain engine. So use Maplex labeling engine. That's the standard that we've become accustomed to. That's the one it should be. Don't switch to the standard. No, that's okay. This is the one okay. That it's the most consistent one that we found that we tend to use it. We don't use anything else. Another one, you already have it. The second level beneath your new page is called your tools. You have all that already, it looks like. The majority of it. So I'll give you different pointers. So as you look at that particular one, this toolbar, as you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 across, you have a selection tool. That's one you use to select things within the map. It has a little arrow and a blue and tan square and a pull-down menu next to it. That's the one used for editing or finding items that are in the map. So if you go all the way over to the left and the second row down, then go about the middle of that row, and it's blue, yeah, that. So that's your select tool. You'll use that to select anything that's in the map that is selectable. That's another aspect that we'll cover. And then the other arrow is stuff you use when you're in the layout mode. You can select things that are outside of the map. That's the use of that arrow. It gets kind of confusing, but you find your way through it. Next one that would be useful is called data-driven pages. So if you want to right-click in your open space and add that one. Data-driven pages.
That one.
There you go. Yep. And that's what you'll use when you're creating map pages. You'll set up your different pages for a set of prints based on one of the layers in that map. So if we have a grid set up, you base it on that grid, and every time you hit an arrow and go to the next page, it'll automatically zoom to that grid. Then you can make a map by exporting this to a PDF, and that's the easiest way to do it. The next one will be versioning, if you add that to your toolbars. And what versioning is when you have a database everyone is working out of. It's calling that the parent version. You'll have a default database, but everyone that's working in that database will have a child version. And the versioning is you'll save your edits in your version, and you will move those into the parent version. That's where it will be checked and verified, and then all the changes that were in the parent will come back down. So if you do that, save your edits, you'll always have the latest version of what's available for that database, which is how it should work. And you'll have conflicts, and there's pop-ups that come up and tell you that you edited something that someone else edited around the same time. They'll give you both options. You pick which one is correct. And despite what you may think, yours is not always correct. So you have to kind of check and verify. It's a hard one to learn. Next one is for editors. So if someone's going to be doing advanced editing or just editing of anything, creating things, moving things around. Yes, editor would be the next one. Another one you can add if you need it. I mean, the rest of these, advanced editing and COGO, those are tools you use to shape and move lines and duplicate things if you need them. It's kind of, if you find you can't do something, maybe it's in there. To edit vertices, you will want to. COGO, yeah, that's construction tools. Like you can change to a specific point from point A to B and tell how long it is for a line. And edit vertices is how you would right-click and you edit an existing feature. Just like AutoCAD, every line, every curve has individual points in it. So that's how you edit those points.
Does it have a midpoint too?
It does. It's a little different to find the midpoint, but you can find it. It's an X that comes up when you select something. It always makes the midpoint of everything you're selecting. It shows up as a white or almost clear X.
Okay.
Let's see.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. Could two engineers be on the same drawing at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
But each engineer should have a different version that they're working in. One with probably their initials, all in the same database, two different versions. So there won't, to avoid any conflicts of people deleting or changing or moving the exact same item at the exact same time, ArcMap, and it separates it out so you can easily do each version. So it's like your individual copy of the map, but it's all based on the same database. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but who will be the original?
That depends on how you set that up. If you have one person that is kind of the head of the design and they have everything, then you have other ones. You can tell it to go to this person's version, they check it, and then that person decides what's correct and then moves it to the parent. That's fine. It depends on however you want to set that up. And that's
Maria will be the main, and then we'll have okay, I understand now.
Yeah. So if Mariel is the main, everyone is beneath her in that category, and all the changes they make will shift into hers. She will have to check and make sure those are correct first before she posts it to the default layer, and that's where all of the permanent changes live, is on the default layer. And it's just a way to make sure nothing wrong is put on the default layer. You can always roll back the versions, but you want to try and avoid that if at all possible. Let's see, you have another one. So feature cache is another toolbar. So when we have all of these points for all the islands here, if you want to see them, they're going to take up a lot of memory, and it makes things move very slowly. If you're only working in one area, you can use that tool in that feature cache you just put in. It is a wrench inside of a dashed box that will build the feature cache, and it's all that does is saves kind of a snapshot of where you're at, so it makes things move faster. Helps it from crashing as well. So if it gets overloaded with all this memory trying to move things, it tends to just break down and crash rather than destroy something. The other one, you have geometric network editing you can use in your toolbar. That's definitely more advanced, but as you get into it, you might find it useful. And then the last one for the toolbars is the snapping. Something we always use just to make everything clear and concise. Just like AutoCAD, yeah. You snap to whatever you want. You can make all those adjustments. You hate snap? Ugh.
I don't like snap, but yeah, it works, but it's just sometimes it snap to where I want it to go. But
oh yeah. Well, use it or not. That's up to you guys. That's your database. That's fine. So that is the basics to start with. You can add or remove whatever you like, but that's kind of what we start with for our defaults. And since we do editing and using, go ahead.
Jason Morris here. I logged in late. I got a quick question. Probably a mistake. When you strand, like we started our stranding in S3, right? Can you import that, or you should strand inside of CrescentLink? Like, attaching the poles to the strand.
Attaching the poles to the strand?
Yeah.
You can import, a shape file that you bring in. You can edit and modify with CrescentLink if need be. But generally, CrescentLink doesn't apply to strand. It applies to fibers or coax. Because strand is just strand.
Right. So it's done in CrescentLink, though. It can be done in CrescentLink or imported, correct?
It can be imported, yes, into ArcMap, yes.
All right, thank you.
CrescentLink is just the network one, yeah. Yep. All right, so next, let's see.
Selecting snapping, but I don't see it.
Looking for what?
I selected snapping, but I don't see a toolbar popping up. What was that about?
It may be there already, or it may have popped up in a weird spot.
Yeah, take it off, I put it on. Okay.
It could pop up behind something too. And if you have more than one thing, if you look down at the bottom of your screen, there are probably two entities where something's just kind of hanging out by itself. You have your MXD, which is one, and if you have two in that little spot at the bottom of your window, that might be one of them.
No, I don't see that.
Well, let me see yours. Well, here, I'll give it to you. Take a look at yours and see.
Your map doesn't have everything on it either.
It may, but it's just not. It's a different.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, the resolution's different than yours. It's a little bigger. Make your window. Does it get any bigger than that? Probably not.
That's it.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay, let's see. Well, yeah, I don't see. You're right. I don't see where it would go, where it has gone. Let's see. Sorry, just move this around a little bit so we can see. It pops up behind there or something.
What is that you're looking for?
Snapping.
Okay. By chance, is it on another screen?
Yeah, it's not there.
No, I'm looking at my other screens and I don't see it today.
Right. I don't see even the window where it would be.
But remember snapping small, you know.
Yeah, but it might be on the side off the page.
That could be. So maybe here. No. Here. Here, hold on, let's see. Yep, I don't see it. Well, never had that happen. I don't know. Maybe if you close down and restart it, it might come back up. I have no idea.
Okay, try.
All right.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So all of these commands, you should have them probably somewhere, a matter of finding them. So this pan button, this pan navigation, should be up here. And pan, like you would think, just moves your map within the map from one place to another. If you have a mouse with a wheel that's also a button, that also does the same thing. That defaults to pan. Some of the settings you can get used to, or you need to know. So something we're used to is for zooming in and out, I don't know if anyone's familiar with AutoCAD. To zoom out, you pull back in your mouse wheel. To zoom in, you push in on it. Default, that is backwards in ArcMap. So in your ArcMap options under your windows, come up here towards the bottom of here, change your roll forward, drag up to zoom in, zoom out. You can switch that whichever you prefer. It's one of those little things that's kind of annoying if you don't know how to fix it.
Yes, it's very annoying.
All right. Did it come back up?
Still loading.
Gotcha. Okay. Next one, so zoom in, zoom out. They're up here at the top. Pretty self-explanatory. Zoom to full extent. That can go poorly if you want to try that. Depends on what you have in your database. So if you zoom to full extent, there's full extent. So you have a tiny little dot of everything that's in this map, and somewhere around here in the far corners, there's something that is also in your map, but you probably don't want to see it. So we don't use that too often. I wish it wasn't there, but sometimes maybe you want to see it. One thing you're probably thinking we're missing if you're used to having pretty maps is a base map, some land, some photographic images of what you're looking at. So you can add that if you go to add a layer or add data. Up at the top by where your current scale is, there's a button that has a pull-down menu, and you can add what is called a base map. Reason I don't have one is because it really slows everything down. But you can add one if you need to see it for a certain area. You can add streets, imagery, labels, or just plain imagery. And it will take a while to show up. And then it slows moving everything down. But it is nice to have if you're making maps for someone that wants to see more than just the lines. So here's what you see. So this can get things kind of muddy when you're trying to navigate and see what's what.
Too dark.
So if you double click on the base map, you can change the transparency as to how much you actually see. So generally we work with 60%, seems to lighten it up enough. So you can still see it's there, but it's not getting in your way. But like I said, all those high-end photos, they're high resolution. Sometimes if you have a lot of data, zooming in and out, it really slows things down. So we can have it on, but we generally just don't show it because that will speed things up.
We generally, well, me, let me put it that way, draw in the buildings that we need if we need a building.
Correct.
You know, because sometimes we have to go around a building and up and down and going around to try to get into some room in the back or something like that. So, you know, I'll draw all of those because those footages add up to the total length of the cable. But sometimes the picture of the building is not going to work because it has a tree somewhere or something, and then that kind of muddies up what you're looking at.
True.
So can I bring in images that, you know, that we had created?
You can, yes. You can bring in images you created. If you made them in CAD, you will have to bring them in, and you will have to physically put them on a point where you know they are correct spatially.
Okay.
Unless you've established a geolocate point in AutoCAD, and you know where that geolocate point is in ArcMap, then you can snap to that. That's a little more complicated. It takes some doing, but it can be done. Just a little different. But sometimes we also have, in some of the layers, we have contour lines, parcels, and then if someone has ever created building outlines, we also have that. And this is the contours of the island. So you can kind of see where everything goes. If that's useful, that's fine. But For a lot of the clients we have, they do have building layers. You can get those. There are some sources for it, but it varies, and sometimes they're not that accurate. So if you have something already created that you drew, yeah.
The contour layers we would use if you're going to do a permit that has to be sent to CZM, because they need to, but then you use a CZM map, really.
Right.
It shows what they consider to be a flood zone and what isn't.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Generally, we have to buy those maps, but when we create a document to show that we're placing a pad somewhere, and we have to show the build out of the pad and all the dimensions and everything, you have to put those dimensions on there as well, showing all the contours and, you know, whether the water is coming lapping up to your pad or not.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, yeah, you guys know what is a good source there, so it's really up to you how much you want to use, turn on, add in, or whatever you want to eliminate.
Okay, how do you turn off the base map?
It's just checkbox. So on the side wherever your table of contents is, where you have all the layers listed, it is a checkbox in front of the word, and just checking it off will make it go away. Kind of like layers and other, just like layers and other software. Now you can remove it completely if you don't want it. If you're not going to use it, you don't want it on there, you don't want it to even be in the map, you can just completely remove it. And that's always available through Esri, other base maps. Or if you have your own orthophotography, you can add that in as well. That's just a little harder to come by in some areas. If we have it, we prefer to use that because it doesn't take up as much space. It's not the entire world. But if we don't have it, we'll use the base map if that's what the client wants in. Is it going off for you?
No.
No? All right, well, let's see yours then, see what's going on. Oh, okay. Let's see. So you may have something else that's showing. Oh, click on your plus on the world imagery. It shouldn't show up, but so underneath base map you have world imagery as well. Click the plus there. See if you can check off any of those. It might not let you. Okay, it's an error.
Yeah, well, it won't let you turn those off.
No, I guess just remove it and see what happens. I don't know why it's stuck like that.
How about that little refresh button down on the bottom of the map area?
F5 refreshes, yeah. Too. On the lower left, there is a refresh. It's a circle, 2 chasing arrows. Yep, one, 3 over.
Right.
There one. Yep.
Nope, that's not it.
No, it's stuck. Yeah. Haven't seen that either. I don't know what you guys are doing there.
Following your directions.
Well, that's the problem, I guess. Sorry. Well, I would remove the base map and see if you can just put it back in and turn it on. Or it may be one of those things where you have to restart to get it to do it.
Okay.
Yep. It seems like, because you can't see the edges of those lines, it seems like it might be stuck in a function doing something. I don't know. Baron, did you get your snapping back up?
No, I have not. And looking now, I can't even see where I would load the base maps.
Went into customize?
these has the option. That's the one with file, the one with the save and so on. Where is that? What toolbar is that?
For the base maps?
Yeah, the one with save and open and the base maps and there's.
So as you see that, yeah, right there. Pull that down, the add data, and it gives you an option for base.
What is the name of the?
Oh, you don't have that option at all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That is the standard. Should be.
Okay.
Let's try going to customize menu.
Customize menu.
That's Dave's machine.
Yeah, I'm in the customize menu.
Right. When you go to the customize menu, go to customize mode.
Customize mode. Yeah. Right.
Under commands, you could search for snap in there.
I searched for it. I just checked it, and I have standard checked as well.
Right. And if you not see it anywhere, maybe you might want to set the defaults.
Set the defaults.
Oh yeah.
Where do you have the option to set the defaults?
On the customized toolbar, on the toolbars, they have reset.
Yeah. Are you sure you want to reset the changes to snapping toolbar? Say okay.
What happened to snapping toolbar?
Yeah, just.
Yep.
Okay. And I guess close.
Yeah, just close down the application and open it up again. So it would take.
Okay, so I'll be back in 5 minutes then, I guess.
Yeah. All right. I'll take this back. I guess Dave, see if restart helps anything to make those go away. I don't know. Let's see. So we were at pointers. You have your select elements, which is the black arrow at the top. And when you are in layout view, or if you're in data view and you create something. So if you want to create something that is not part of your feature classes, something just in the map, that is what you use that black arrow for. You cannot select anything that is one of the feature classes, anything listed on the right side with this select arrow. You can only select things that you have created in here that are not part of that. Be it a shape or text or notes, whatever you want. Let's see here.
Say that one more time, Jason.
So you have up at the top, when you have your black arrow, your select, it only selects things that you have created in your data view or in your layout view. It does not pertain to anything that is in this list of feature classes on the right side. So it's only something that you created. You can create all kinds of things if you want, shapes and text, but this is something that you created. It doesn't pertain to any of those other layer files. It has no source. Its source is what you just put in the map. So that's what that arrow is for, all of those other things. So if you get something that you cannot select, you find in a map and you don't know why you can't get to it, most likely it's because it's something someone created, and you have to use that tool to get to it and remove it. There's two types of arrows.
So when I add that, how would I make it solid into the drawing, or Mario will do that?
Mario can do that, yes. If you want something to stay permanent, you can put it in a layer. You can create a layer and keep it there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But if you have notes that you say no one delete, then they'll just stay there. It's in the database. Everyone can see it, but it's just something that if someone wanted to delete it, they could. And the other one is your select features, which pertains to, it's this button up here, which pertains to anything you have created in this list, all of these. So when you select things like that, sometimes you want to select everything in a certain area, but you only want the elements specifically that you're looking for. In your table of contents, after you use the select tool, and this is one tool you can select with a window, you can select by polygon, lasso, circle, line, whatever you're used to. After you make that selection, to see what you have selected, the fourth icon in the top of your table of contents is list by selection. And as you can see, there is an explanation of what everything is if you hover over it. So if you switch to your list by selection, you have selected coax cable, 8 points of that, some path, 8 instances of that, splice points, part of your coax display, which is some of your coax tools, support structures, which is your poles, fiber cables, and also a boundary. So also in that, everything that is listed, everything you see here that is in this right window, feature classes, it is associated with a data table. That's where all the information actually lives. So if you open up the attribute table, and how you do that is, whatever you have selected, you can right click, you can see the properties of it. So in the selected, you can open up the attribute table. The attribute table is showing the selected features you have. You can see what this is that you have selected if you don't know. So Monbijou 012, that is the boundary you have for this particular node. There's a lot of information in this software. As long as you know how to find it, it's very useful, but it takes some time to figure all of that out.
All this information is in the manual?
A good portion of it is. A lot of it you have to figure out on your own. Now there's a manual for ArcMap and CrescentLink. There's a manual that I created, the ArcMap and CrescentLink guide, which is a little more detailed. So with the CrescentLink and ArcMap, there is a guide. So you should have a manual somewhere for the version of ArcGIS Desktop you have. For CrescentLink, when we get into that, there is also a manual for that. It's rather extensive, and you can find that. Whoever's in charge of your IT, they should have access to that, or you can access it through CrescentLink's website. And there is a copy of their manual for your version. And there's a lot of information in there. I'll switch to ours. And even CrescentLink has a lot of information regarding Esri and ArcMap as a whole too, to help you. So there's, like I said in the original outline, Google is your friend. If you can't find something, and if you Google it, most likely there will be an explanation. So just for instance, if you want to select features, how to select features in ArcMap. There you go. Click selection on the main menu, click options, how to select features. Sometimes there's things you just can't figure out and you have no choice but to go and find the answer. So there hasn't been something we can't find when we're trying to accomplish something with ArcMap. Someone else has done it at some point. There's a record of it. So that's how you kind of navigate around everything. Oh, let's see, back to our points. So how is all this information so far? Everybody get all this?
Nope.
It's coming.
I didn't think so. It's a lot. It's a lot to go through. Even a couple days worth. It's a lot of information, and it takes a lot of poking around, and probably to become efficient at it, it's probably about a year before you get really efficient at doing it and knowing where everything is and knowing how to accomplish things. It's like AutoCAD or Photoshop or any piece of software you're learning. Even Excel. Excel has millions of things you can do with it. It's similar to that. You have to find all the ways to do everything and just kind of figure it out along the way. You can take training and certifications, but it takes time.
The number one priority right now is snapping.
All right. Well, we'll get to that part. So right now, speaking of mapping, you're in data view, which is everything you can see. So if you zoom out, you see everything that's available. Not a whole lot in this one, but just because it's a sample. But as you said, mapping. Hold on a second.
Someone was
likes to not.
snapping.
Snapping.
Hey, Jason, what about 2D and 3D rendering?
In rendering?
Yes.
We don't. That's something we don't use with this. It's not the rendering part. There are some things, I've seen some instances where you can render the whole thing out and it looks pretty, but it doesn't serve much of a function. That's just something we have not got into. We haven't had a need to get into it yet because we're more on the design side. But there are 3D tools, and there's another ArcMap. There's 3D options for that too, and that would be the way to go for that.
Now you've got a node border here. How do you select this out if you want to just look at this node alone and map, plot it on a paper?
This node alone. So if you switch your views to the layout view, layout is what pertains to maps specifically, and you can always pick up your layer. Let's see. It is in your node boundaries. If you right click on your node boundaries in your table of contents, open the attribute table, and you'll see I have this one queried out, so just this one is showing.
Okay.
So this particular one, it's easy to do that. So that's another part of all these layers. You have, and we're kind of jumping around a bit, but whatever questions you have, I want to answer first, and then we'll get back to it. So definition query. That is where you tell it what you want to see. And it uses, I believe it's Python language. And it's a lot of if, at, then commands. So if you're familiar with any of that language. So what you're looking for is you're in this layer. So if you start, let me back up. So in your node boundaries, you want to open up the properties of the node boundaries. And you want to see just one. I'll erase it first so you can see all of them. So because I took out the definition query, you see all of the layers in this one. So everything we have in this particular layer is showing. But you only want to see Monbijou 12. Go back to your properties, and you create a definition query. You're defining exactly what you want to see with this query. So you go to your query builder, and it's a lot more simple than it looks. So you want to see your station ID here as what's listed. That's something that is unique to each individual one. So you want to see the station ID. Station ID equals, And then for that entire column, there's all kinds of values. You get those unique values in a list when you hit get unique values, and you can type in. As you start typing, it'll change. So MBJ, go to 012, double click that. It will bring it down to this box. You hit OK, hit apply. And the only one you see now is just the one you told it to show. And you can do that for anything, any layer. You can tell it what to show. So if you only want to see, we'll take another instance here. And to do certain things in the maps, you have to be editing to be able to pick and show what they are. So in the parcels, generally they are not. So another example, the parcels in this particular map, they're not editable. We don't want to be able to click on those every time we're clicking and trying to grab something. So also in here, you can see what's picked. This is your selectable. So in this window, list by selection. Excuse me, sorry. Every layer is listed here, and it's either selectable or not selectable. So right now our parcels are not selectable. We can change that attribute. There's 3 different options. You can change it to selectable. And now if you go into here, you can select a parcel. And then you can see what parcel that is by opening up the table that's associated with it. And this parcel number here. If you take that parcel number, you can copy it. You can go back to your table, go to the properties of that layer. You can do a definition query for just that one. So if you're zooming in on individual customers and you want to see their lot and it's for their particular account, go to your query builder. And so the column is parcel number. So you double click on parcel number and then an equals sign. Get unique values. That's going to get a lot of them. So you look at 206. You start typing 2066. And sometimes we get so many, it won't show up. If you know exactly what it is, especially being a number, if you put it in with a single quote on each end, you verify it. It's okay. You're looking for just that parcel number. Parcel number equals. You verified that it's correct. It says the expression select successfully verified. I can talk. Click OK. Hit apply. And just that parcel is all that's showing in that entire layer. It gives a lot of variety of what you can do with everything. You just have to know how to do it. And that's a big part of learning this. Take it out, everything comes back. And if you don't want those to be selectable again, take that and make it not selectable. So you zoom to this area for this particular node. This is all you're showing. You can take this. You can add whatever elements you want in here. If you want to add boxes, polygons, if you want to show a certain area, very similar to AutoCAD. And you can change the properties of anything you're creating as well. If you don't want a fill color, you want the outline to be a certain color, you can change the outline width, hit apply. So you're creating a map for just that. So at this point, you have your map set up with whatever you want in it, be it text or different shapes, anything. File, export map. Sorry, that went a little fast. Hold on. Got to pay attention to the delay. So file, export map. And what this will do make a, you can change your file type to whatever you want, SVG, a JPEG, a PDF, which is common. You can call this MJ12. Save it as a PDF. We're gonna change the DPI down because it'll be rather large. Give it a second here.
Jason.
Yes, sir.
I lost my table of contents. How do you find the table of contents back?
All right. So up here, if you click Window, you have Table of Contents, Catalog Search, everything. So if you click on Table of Contents, it'll bring that back up. And it's just a matter of wherever you want to put it. I always like mine docked on the right side. And with these arrows, you see you can dock it wherever you want. But up here under Windows and Table of Contents. So as you can see that.
I got it, Jason. Thanks.
You got it? All right. Good deal. This is open. This one we just created MBJ012 PDF. And there's your map. Create everything that's there. Everything you see, that's just the one map for that area. So once you create in here, making maps is relatively easy. Figuring out what you want to put on it, everything you want to see, and the scale and everything, that's where it gets a little more complex. But that's something that Muriel's used to with AutoCAD. So I'm sure she can handle that once she figures it out. Right?
I suppose we can. That looks like my drawing.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
That building, that's a church. Yeah.
The one here? This one?
Yeah.
Sure it is. It's probably where we got it.
Well, then the buildings, I can put them on the base then at some point.
Yeah, you can separate all those out. If you want to just pull out those and put it on a separate layer, that's fine. So actually, now that you mention it, I'll show you how you can do that as well. So in order to do something like that, generally we will work, this is in layout mode, just for a map. But to edit things like that, you should do it in your data view. But to pull out parses or pieces of an existing layer and make your own layer of it, you can do that. So we make our parcels selectable again. Switch to our arrow. Select whatever you want to keep. So there's a list of parcels. So when you have in your table of contents, when you go to your list by selection, it has all of these you created, you tapped on, and you selected. So if you right click, and you can create a layer from selected features. What that does is it takes those, makes it its own individual layer or shapefile, and it automatically puts it at the top. So now you have your own layer. If you open up the attribute table, all that's in there is just those. So if that's all you wanted to see,
it doesn't matter if it's inside or outside of the node boundary then. Okay.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. It's whatever you want to select on. And then you can always change the attributes of all of those to whatever you want to see. You can change all of the symbols, all of the outlines, whatever you want. And you can also change the opacity of that layer, the same way we did for the background layer. if you want to be able to see through and see what's underneath them, that's in your display transparency. You can change and see that they're just halos there. You can see what they contain. Simple to do things like that. This is one of those programs that's very easy to do things of that sort. I was kind of surprised.
Now on the design itself, I don't see any house counts and footages or anything.
No, you don't. And this particular one, you will not, because I just didn't put anything in there. Because this is a basic level, and I didn't. It's in there. You're not going to see it because I don't have it labeled. I'll show you though. All right. So you select all these, see what you have selected, and then show the coax cable in your table. So in the table, they have your shape lengths, but because of what this is built on, I'm not sure if it's feet or not. No, it's in meters. Everything that's created will have a shape length in regards to the cable and things like that. And it's just a matter of whether you want to show it or not and what you want to convert it to. If you want to convert it to feet, here's your feet, because that's what was put in the designer when we created these. You had to specify what footage you were putting in so it could calculate appropriately. And if you wanted to label that layer, you can do that. Label features, but you don't know what actually it'll label until you tell it to label it. And that's another part of it. So each layer has individual properties for what you can show and what you don't want to show. So labels is one part of that property. Just like the definition query, everything is situated in tabs. You can have labels. What you want to label by, you can label the footage. And you can choose the symbol you want to use to label that footage. Okay, apply, and then you can see the footage for those cables. You can show it whatever you want to see. Besides whatever we have set up, whatever you decide to have set up, you pretty much have to tell each layer what you want it to do. Initially, when you create things in the table of contents, it's nothing but dots like this. You have to tell it what you want that dot to look like. And there's all kinds of symbols you can tell it to do. You want it to be something like that, that's what it's going to be. It defaults to a dot or a rotated square or diamond for most items in the table of contents. It's one, it's for flexibility, and two, it's just so you can do whatever you want and so you can actually see whatever's there.
Okay, now for the poles themselves, I see you have poles, and I guess the blue is a strand.
Yep.
The yellow and green dots there.
Yeah, those are the poles.
If you change the poles, does it just change all the poles? Or can you select which poles you want?
You can select which poles you want. Generally, to change that, to differentiate them, you would have to change something in the data layer. So if you want all those poles, okay. Now I'll show you what I'm talking about. So these are poles 31, 32, and 33. And if you want all these to be a certain kind, if they are a certain kind, you can use one of these tables you have empty if there's nothing being used, or you can add a column, an empty column, so you can change whatever you want.
So I'm looking at ownership.
Ownership?
Class, ownership, class, and size.
Okay, so to be determined. Here. Ownership, other, and we'll just say null. So then you have those different options, and most of them are null. Go back to your table of contents and go to that layer. They're in the pole survey version 1. You go to the properties of that. So because you change the owner individually in all of those, or you pick the select few and you change them all to one owner, you can change the symbology based on unique values. So right now, the features, they were based on just a symbol. That's just what we picked. All poles look like this, just because that's why. But you can change in categories unique values for each one. And the field that it's based on would be the owner in this case. So you're changing to the owner. It doesn't know what that is, but so you need to add the values that you said you're selecting. So you have via, you have power. Those are different ones. So for via, you want to change it to pole. You just search for a pole, and nothing there. Whatever you want. Change it to electrical pole, exterior mounting light pole. So for the via ones are orange. Your regular power are something else. So if you type that in, another pole. Blue circle. Okay. So, and all other values. So anything else besides that, whatever you want to call it. Let's see. Property and company owned wood pole. All right. So your power poles are going to be the cyan, and the via ones are going to be orange, and anything else is going to be a white dot. So you deselect those. This is your clear selected features, by the way. So you should be able to see those.
Jason, can you add other utilities too?
Yes, you can add in the pick list. That's buried in the layer, and whatever you want to change it to. Let's see. Table. So let's go to a select few. Zoom to those. So via. Because they're all via, they're all orange now. And if you want to check and see what the power ones look like, sort of sending, go to this group. Okay, so we'll go here. Select nothing, so those are all cyan circles. You can specify nearly anything. You can change whatever you want in any of these layers. It's just a matter of figuring out how to do it. And that's part of the learning curve of the software.
So the poll number will come from the poll survey that's done?
Poll number will come from whatever is
what we had
determined it to be. Yes. If that's what you had on the map, and when they collected it, that's the poll number they put in, that's the poll number that it will be. You can change it if you want. You can edit anything in these tables if you want to, if you know that that's not the correct poll number.
And if you don't put anything, it won't have a number.
No. Like this one, blank. There was no poll number. But you can see where it is. I mean, as a reference, you can zoom to that poll. You can see that it's near this other one that may or may not have a poll number.
Are those pole numbers via pole numbers or WAPA pole numbers?
I don't know.
Because it says power and the owner. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like it'd be WAPA, but I don't know.
Those are WAPA pole numbers. They don't look like our pole numbers.
Then they're WAPA poles, yeah.
So we're not going to find where we're going.
Well, I mean, that's why you have all parts of the map. So you have roads and houses and other features, and if you know that this road turns a certain direction at this mountain peak, then that's why you have all the other elements so you can know where you're going. And if you need to replace a pole right there, you put your own pole number. It only does what you tell it to do, and it only knows what you supply it. There's very little it's going to know on its own. The base maps, yeah, CrescentLink put them in there, but overall, it handles the data that you put in. So I don't know where this pole survey version came from. I don't know. I think they came from Baron from the collection. For this particular one, this is version 1, though.
Yeah, early collection.
Right. So, I mean, that's where it came from. Someone collected that, and they said it was a power pole. They didn't say exactly what one, but this is the pole number that was on it. So that's what they put 1 on.
Yeah, but we will need some kind of identification of who is who.
Well, we have the identification, but I don't know if it's being transferred. That's the thing. It should be transferred to all the poles because they're all identified right now.
And maybe there is. I don't know if there's another one. I haven't looked at all the categories to see what's here. I'm sorry. But it looks like pole transfer, this category. And maybe there's other notes. Okay, so a certain surveyor that took it. There's fiber and cable on those, or just coax. Anything that's on there, there's splitters, the pole condition. So if you know when it's being collected.
Okay, you see where it says pole number? Go back to where you were just a second ago.
Okay.
More to the left of the screen. Left.
Oh.
Yeah.
Number?
Okay.
Yeah.
It says owner, pole number, and then you see where it says PIPR?
Yes.
That's where our pole number is supposed to go, and there's all zeros.
Not all zeros. Which one?
Well, okay, there's 1. All right, but the rest of them don't.
Okay. But so if you sort on what's there, maybe it's not all zeros. No, there's only a couple.
Right.
So if we take a look at those.
That hasn't been populated with our pole numbers.
I think that's okay because those pole surveys were all out in like the far western Bordeaux area, and there's a lot of composite poles being planted out there.
Okay. But the pole number will transfer.
Yep. It has to be labeled.
It transfers to the new pole, so you have to put the numbers in.
Yeah, that's what we get to do when we're putting it into the GIS database. That's why he's getting your maps. So as we go along, put them in there. It's the guys who go out and do the survey, they tell us where things are in space, and then we get to flesh it out with all of the rest of the information.
Correct. That's where you're using all those maps for that you created.
Cletus, when you say you're talking about one of the contractors that we're using? Or?
The contractors, it must be.
Yes, the contractors. And eventually you know.
So question as we are on surveys, right? The information that was captured, whichever surveyor captured that information, is it safe to say that the buyer pole numbers were not visible on the poles?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay, but we have that information on some form of paper copy or so, right?
Yes, maps, you have the base maps that showed you what the numbers were, yes.
Okay, so like Cletus said, since these surveys do not have that information, we cannot really penalize them. So we internally, whoever we is, in quotes, would have to update the attribute information with the poll numbers that you have on your PDFs or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be where the real work is.
Yeah, definitely.
And as Baron said, this is an old version. Maybe the updated version has more poll numbers in it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think they're collecting our poll numbers because a lot of them are not on the polls in the field, but they are on the maps, which is the theoretical world. So
well, where were you on that one? You should have been telling them to do that. Jeez.
So the desktop exercise.
I did.
For the desktop exercise,
I know.
For the desktop exercise, we'll have to get that information and put it in.
Yeah.
Right. So we did ask the guys to go out there and, if they see a VIA number, put it in the PIPR field. If they see a WAPA number, put it in the poll field. How did you put it? Does the poll have a VIA tag? Was one of the options. I think that's the own.
Yep.
Was it? Well, in the second version. But the whole thing is that we wanted them to focus on what do you see there in front of you. Forget what's supposed to be. What do you see there in front of you? Because we know what's supposed to be from the maps, and we're going to be using the maps to populate these things when we're putting it into the geodatabase system. So what they see there is, saving us the little trip having to go up to the poll and take a look. See.
Yeah, whatever they saw was documented.
Cletus, that's great in theory, but the problem is with what changed during the storm versus what we have on the drawings. Unless somebody's looking at the drawing in front of them and interpreting which pole that is, you're going to be revisiting all these.
That's what we're going to do.
That's why we gave you the PIPR.
That's what we're going to have to do in order to get it into the geodatabase system. We're going to have to look at the drawings and correlate it with, okay, there's a pole there. Or there isn't a pole there because somebody put it on the other side of the street. We know, from the GPS location of the thing that the next pole was supposed to be on this side of the street according to our maps, but it's over on the other side. And, that's the only pole there, so that has to be its pole number. It's going to be a very long road getting this thing into the database system.
Also, presently, do you all have a spreadsheet with the two pole numbers?
Just from
Like a cross-reference?
Yeah, you can just cross-reference them if you do have that, it's even easier to fill out the attribute information.
No, we do not.
We could do
we
it
do not
now.
have access to WAPA's data as yet. We may
All right.
have that, hopefully.
Well, anyway, I guess we will figure that out when we really get to that. So let's get back to the training.
Yes.
All right. Well, in that, you guys want to take a little break? Are you okay?
Well, okay. I'm okay.
Okay.
Is everybody else okay?
Yes.
Yes, we're okay.
Good. All right. So, Mario, what other questions do you have? What else you got?
Lots and lots of questions.
Lots and lots of questions. That's fine.
Lots and lots of
questions.
For work orders, for creating work orders, I mean, a lot of this stuff is not going to impact other people, but it's going to impact me as how to create a work order off of this. Because in a work order sense, you have different line weights that we use for existing and then proposed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm supposing, I guess I can figure that out. Of course, you know about the colors because I told you about that. But the line weights also change, especially in fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Where is fiber on here anyway? Oh, I see it, purple. Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit, not a lot for this one. So there is a tool in CrescentLink. It's called CrescentLink Work Order. You guys should have access to that. And let's see where I have it. Here, Work Order Manager. So in this tool for CrescentLink, jumping ahead a little, but that'll answer your question. You create a new work order, whatever you want to call it, the description of it, who it's assigned to. You can populate all this at a later date. CrescentLink will show you how to do that. You have all your information there. So if you want to create a work order, and save that work order, you go to that, okay. That's your work order, select, and you You can close that. You can turn on the work order. That. So now your work order is on. When you are editing and doing things, anything you install will default to having work order 55555 put into the work order column for whatever you create. So say if you want to create, we're already doing coax cable. If you want to create a coax cable of 500 run, here to here to here, goes over here, goes to this pole. You finish it. To finish that, you hit F2, that finishes the sketch. So if you look up this work order or this coax run you have, look by what's selected, you open up the tables showing that, and if you scroll over here to work order, you have that work order number in it. As long as you remember to turn that on, fantastic. You can zoom to anything related to that work order. You can show just that. And all the coax cable, all you want to see is something that was done for that work order. That's what you can query it out, like we went over, and that's all you'll see. And you can make your work order, your drawings from that specifically. That's what we do all the time. That's why we use the tool. Very easy to create specific work for that.
And I can
as
make
long as
PDFs
you remember to do it.
Everything.
Yes, you can make PDFs. And if you forget to turn it on, you can go to a boundary and select everything within that boundary and say, I want it to be this work order. And you just populate that one column, and that's what it is. So we have this, like, for instance, for Mon Bijou 12. So let's go back to that. Back to our table of contents. We go to our node boundaries. Go to the attribute table. So you have this node boundary. We'll zoom to it. Back to where we were. This node boundary. This is also used as a selection tool. So you will not have this one, I don't believe. Select by location is probably not in your map, but it should be. So if you right click here, or you go all the way to the bottom, however you get to customize, brings up this window. And you go to commands, you can type your list in, and this is a selection command. So if you type in selection, and you go to categories, and you click selection, and you should be able to select from, let's see, go select by area, excuse me. Select by location. So if you select by location, and that you can take it and drag it and put it wherever you want into your toolbars. I already have it in there, so I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
But select by location will bring up another box. And then you can change the selection method. So you're going to select from, and you're looking at your target layer. So you want all of the coax cable. That's your target. You're looking for coax cable. And you're looking for coax cable where? Well, it's going to be in the boundary you have selected. So you go to the USVI node boundaries. You use the selected features. You can click that checkbox. And so the spatial selection method for this target layer feature is, I want all of the coax cable. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Coax cable. So you want all of the coax cable that's within the node boundaries for what I selected, which is MBJU 012, and you want it to intersect that source layer. You click apply, you go to your selected, all the coax cable that is in that boundary, you open the table showing those selected features, and then if you want that, so you can go to, so here, all those selected, you want to have the same work order. Also, you have an attribute table. You can right click, and you should be able to go to attributes. No, not that. So I always have it. Hold on. Let's see. So if you do not have this in your table of contents in that same area, there's a button here. It's called Attributes.
Okay.
So you bring that up. So for all the coax cable, it should pop up in here. All this coax cable, you want it to have a work order number. 55555. You put it in that work order, it will change all of those, all that coax cable to have that work order. And then it's the same thing as having the work order on when you're doing it. You want all of that to be on that work order. Like I said,
I heard asking another question.
Go ahead.
Let's try and get a clarification. Are the work orders, do we have it symbolized differently? Because she said that there are certain certain weights or colors of the lines, the features. So
right.
Is it?
If you want to have certain features for certain parts based on the work order, that's something you would have to change in the symbology of that
Symbology.
layer.
Okay.
Yes. So if you go back, we'll hit on that.
So basically, Marilyn,
Mariel?
are you saying, Mariel, are you saying that you have a work order, so it's in construction? When it gets into, you have it in design. So then you would have another work order that would transition it to a different state. So every transition or every state it's in, you have a different type of symbology.
Yes.
Correct.
So this is what you're looking for.
Yes. We also have different colors, but I mean, I can figure it out by color. But when you're doing a work order, the work that is being done is a much a darker line or heavier line than what is existing.
Yeah.
And then once the work order is done and as built, then we revert it back to the regular size.
Okay,
so
understand.
Along that line, you can change. So everything that's in here, be it a point, a line, polygon, whatever, you can have a status of it. We have certain things populated in here for QA, QC, failed pass, as built, whatever. But you can change your symbology also based on the status. You can change your symbology based on whatever column you want. So if you want your 625 to be a blue dash only when it's proposed, you put in your proposed lines, 625, and you change it to the attribute of proposed, and it's going to be that color. So when you take that whole work order and you change it to existing, it's going to change everything you tell it to whatever color and line type you want it to be.
Agree.
Okay.
Correct.
So I don't have to select each one and change it.
No.
No, you select it by work order. So you'll query out what you want to see. You'll say, okay, everything in this work order, excuse me, now changed to existing. It was proposed, it was this color. Now it's existing, it's this color. And if you set all that up ahead of time and that's how you want things done, that's what it'll do. And that's part of the build of all this.
Does it happen inter-tap as well? Because, you have a line and you have a tap, and you have a line, you have a tap. Is this one line and the taps they don't get in the way of this process that you're talking about?
No, it's up to you. No.
Each one would be on the work order anyway, because each piece of the cable before and after a tap would then be part of the work order. So it would all light up as being part of the work order.
Yeah, if that's what you want. So
they can all change.
Different parts of the same layer, you can call it whatever you want. If you want to change the symbology, you can change it based on multiple things. If you don't want the work order associated with it, you don't have to change the color for the work order. But if you want the status and the size to change, then that's what you specify in the symbology. You want it to look like this if it's this size and this status. And you'll change that. I think this is what she wants. Symbol for that color.
I believe this is what she wants, the status, because it could be in the same work order and the status change.
Yeah. Yep. That's why you have all kinds of columns to choose from for whatever you want.
Now, we have another question as well, because being that we're regulated, we have to carry the mortality dates.
Okay.
When we had this done before, they forgot that part of it, so we never had a mortality date line or anywhere that we could check to see when that cable was placed in service. So we need to have something that tells us, you know, on every single piece of the legs when it was in service, because you may
like a
take
created
out,
date?
yeah, you may take out between the 11 and 14 tap there, and the rest of it staying, you know, but it was there since 2011 or whatever. So those dates will be different, even though it's on one leg. So what we're trying to get at is it one contiguous line, or do we have, is it in the segments and we can label each segment?
If you create it as each individual segment, then it'll be each individual segment. If you create it as one line with no breaks, it'll be one line as no breaks.
Okay.
So that's something you have to take into consideration when you're creating those pieces.
Okay, now where can we put in that date? It just needs to be like an apostrophe 99 or 20 or whatever.
You can create and delete as many columns as you want to a point. I think the max, I don't know what the max is for columns, but there has to be a minimum number of columns. There has to be a minimum number of data included in each layer. But you can make a new column. You want to add a field, you can add a field.
Okay.
So if you want your creation date, your change date, and your as-built date, and 3 different columns, you can create those and you can populate them, whatever you want.
Okay.
It will automatically create like last edited and created date from the system. But if you want something else specifically, you have to input it. You can do whatever you want there.
Right. Well, each work order is going to create a new date, you know, by the year anyway.
Yeah.
Everything in 1 year will just follow under that year, but then when the next year comes, you have to change the date to the next year. So.
Yep, and it's fine. You can query it based on, or you can look up and you can populate a column based on another column if you want. So where this column shows this date, put this number here. It's just like Excel in that respect. You can change whatever you want. It's very flexible for data. I mean, that's what it's built on. It's built on data tables. So if there's something you can do in Excel, most likely you can do it in here. It's just a matter of how you want to see that change reflected.
There you go.
Do whatever you want. You can get everything you want out of this.
So how much of this is going to be visible on the map itself? I mean, everything's in a table, yeah. But how?
Whatever you want to show.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can show the entire length of each table if you want, but you don't want it all on there. You can show the date. You can specify whatever you want with a label.
Okay.
Because that's part of it too. Because people want certain things. We have label. We had one client that gave us a label that was honestly like 96 characters long. It was horrible. But they wanted all that information on there, so we gave it to them. It was not simple, and it was horrible to look at maps, but they wanted it all on there. And we could do that because that's what they wanted, and that's fine. But so in your labels, you can pick anything. And besides having just this label, you can make an expression. I want to have the footage, and I want to have the cable size and the class, and I want the date it was created. So you can put all that on there if you want. And that's the expression. You're telling it what to label based on the expression. And that's what that's for.
Okay, well, for the coax, we don't need to, you know, say what type of cable it is, because you can see that by the color. The fiber, of course, is to have all that labeling, because we have the cable size, the cable name, the count, and of course the date. So we're going to have all of that on there.
So you're assuming no one's colorblind.
I am colorblind.
See? That's why you have to have other parts of the label. Unless you're a pilot, there's a good chance you could be colorblind.
Do you like your present layouts of your maps, or whatever you'll do now?
The way this is looking?
No, yours. I mean, whatever you do in AutoCAD or Loopbeat or whatever, do you like it?
Yes, I like what we have right now.
All right.
Because
so,
we have we have people who can't see here, okay? And that's why I write things out, because it might be right in front of their face, but they can't see it.
Yeah, so
I do
I almost certain Jason could copy and paste exactly what you have there to show the labels the same way. Because there is something called annotation. You could use annotation to do that.
Well, you see the MBJ012 that you have right there? That's an annotation that somebody created.
No, it's a label.
For this one.
It's a label. It's not an annotation. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, you could create annotations from labels.
What is the difference?
The difference is an annotation is something you can move around and edit. A label has its spot. It cannot move unless you tell it to move somewhere. But once you convert it to an annotation, so for this one, I'll show you.
Because I thought I saw you apply labels to a layer.
Yes, you apply labels to a layer. You can make those labels. Yeah.
I think you can have multiple features in it, right?
Yes. Yep.
And, different features, different sizes, different shapes. Do the one set of rules tell it where to put those labels on all of those individual features?
Yes. And
currently, my labels, I can move them all over the place wherever I want to move them.
Well, I can too. So you just have to convert it. So you convert your labels to annotation in this map. So now
you can move it?
Yes, now you can move it wherever you want.
It's something you can undo.
You have grip points on any of the things?
Yeah, I have things it's selecting automatically, so let me take that out of here.
Okay.
So now it's there. You can move it wherever you want. But if you don't want that, you delete it and you go back to your node and you label it again. And it's back.
Well, our annotations are at every one of the anything that we're changing, because sometimes you're just changing maybe an EQ or a cable simulator, or maybe you're changing the tap size or whatever. So we just annotate exactly what is happening, what's out and what's in, because we have to, on the work order in the REA codes, account for what is going out and what is coming in. So that accounting. Huh?
Talking about a comment.
No, it's so that the engineer knows what they have to put on the REA codes, what he's adding to the field and what he's removing from the field. And that way accounting knows what to add and remove from their tally of whatever they have to. Plan accounting. So if you're adding in
a list of the things that you added or removed with a work order?
Yes, and these are REA codes that are set up by the Department of Agriculture that we have to use. There are certain codes and they
same thing. We have the same thing called RUS codes, And we have breakout sheets. We have breakout sheets for each work order boundary, actually each map sheet, as to what was removed and what was installed.
Right. Well, that's
Same
what.
thing.
Yeah, we have a little grid. I'll send you one so you can see one. It's a little grid, and we just fill in all what's in and out at each pole location or whatever.
The same thing.
So we wouldn't have to do that with CrescentLink, right? As long as we have the work order, it would just tell us what we put in and took out.
This is the work order I'm talking about.
No, not to that extent. It won't tell you what you have in, what you have out. Once you delete it, it's gone. You still have notes for all those, the same things.
Which is why I do a little cloud next to it to say what went out, and then you see the new thing only. You're not going to see.
Right.
Versioning doesn't help with that.
Everything is not automatic, You have to do work.
Hey, that's what we have versioning for, right? We can roll back a version. Tell the
just
roll back
buttons on some things. You have to put in some information for the thing to know what you want.
That's it. We did put in the information, and we have two versions. We have an old version and a new version. You could tell us what the difference between.
You could do it that way if you wanted to. You can have an old version that never posts up and a new version that always stays current. And you can save those old maps, and those are called archives, but it's up to you.
Does that take an extraordinary amount of space and resources?
Yes, it will.
So REA code section, you have the XX, and then you have what's going in. So they can see on one grid area exactly what's going out, what's coming in. And you'll see when I send you the template so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. See,
and that's basically it.
Yep. Here, I'll show you. We have a similar thing.
This is a nice sheet right here. That's your work order sheet?
Yeah. All right, hold on. I'll show you one we have as well.
Layout.
Let's see. So we have something similar for another. So we have this, and then we have the sheet following as to what happened at what location. From here to here, we had this amount of 24 coil installed. We had units pulled out here, or we had units put in here, and all the old was removed. We have breakout sheets for each one. This is something else. This is something another client had. But yeah, it's not, unfortunately, it's not automatic. There are other things you can do with Project Planner. You can make your own map sheets and have them whatever you want, and it will pull everything associated to an exact point, whether it's an install or remove, and it'll put it in kind of an Excel file at the bottom of the page. We're still kind of playing around with that to get it to work exactly how we want, but it does exist for CrescentLink. It's part of Project Planner. And it's a very good tool. It just takes a little tweaking to get it to do what you want, and that's the same with anything. So it would be similar to that, but it's not automatic for sure. You have to put in its operation points. So you put in an operation point, and you tie everything you want connected to that operation point. You physically tie it to that. You connect it to it. So it's a little different in that respect, but it gets the same result.
You can probably achieve something similar with, like, I guess, procedures. So you use a layer that you say these things are what I'm adding, and you use another layer to say these things are what I'm removing, and you can get like a list of inventory from those.
Yes. Yep.
You can group layers, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different ways to get things done. Yeah. Not automated, but you can make things easier and move along quickly. Yes.
If I could only figure out the snapping thing.
You still don't have a snapping. I'm sorry. It should be. It should be right there.
So sad.
I don't know. That's okay. Muriel doesn't use snapping, so it's not that important.
So, where are we in the training?
I use OSnap. I like OSnap.
OSnap, ObjectSnap. All right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Well, we covered we bounced through a lot of things, but selection types is where we were at. So we covered our data view and our layout view and our refresh and our pause. The pause is important because when you have a lot of things building, you can pause the drawing. Let's see where that is. I don't have it on mine. I did at one point. And that's something too with Esri sometimes that you come in and it does things and you have no idea why or how. I just decided to do that today. So pause labeling. Pause drawing.
And you want to pause it for what reason?
If it's taking a long time to build things, if you want to move to another work order and it's taking forever to build, you can pause the drawing until you get to where you want, and then you can let it go, and it'll build it then. It's just a matter of saving time, because if you have all of those background images, and you have all of your customer points and your addresses and all this other text and things involved. It has to draw all of that every time you move, just so it can show you exactly what's there. So that's why you need to pause it. You can pause labeling, pause all that. That's why a lot of times we don't have things labeled, because it just takes longer to rebuild every time you move something. If you're moving small amounts, it goes fast. But if you're moving a larger amount, it takes a little time to build it.
The pause button
So
is
all
at
of
the
these
bottom.
nodes are connected on.
What's that?
I think your table is covering it.
So all of the nodes are connected on the one map?
Yeah, they're all present, yes. They're all separate entities, but they're all there, yes.
Okay, they're separate, okay.
Yeah. You can turn on and off, just like this one, only this one's on. You can turn everything on and off. And they're not locked into one layer. It's not a block. No.
Okay.
No. Okay, so we went over our select elements, select features, and your select editing. So when you are editing, there's another arrow, and that's used to select everything. That's generally what I go to. I don't ever use the other select unless I'm trying to select a bunch of things all together all at once. But you're editing, you select individual pieces. So when you select something, and in its individual selection window, it notices there's more than one thing, it will give you this pull-down option so you can tell it what exactly you want to select. Do you want this? And it'll flash to it. Or you want the path, or do you want the coax cable that you're over? So I want the coax cable. There's lots of tools to make things easier, but overall it's a very complex program. Okay, back to this.
Now, here's something else. I usually, if we've got somebody that's in another node and we can't be served from that side and we have to move them into another node, how do I get to move these boundaries?
I mean, they're all created. You can move whatever you want. So if you want to change it, it's just a matter of editing that.
Just go to...
So you go to your layer. And because these are all grouped in the same source, when you edit one, you're editing all of them. So if I want to edit this layer, you pick it, and you edit the vertices of the layer.
Yeah.
And just like an AutoCAD drawing, it gives you all the individual points. You select on one point, and now that is part of that.
The map under it is already changed too?
What?
The next node map down changed already?
That's the other thing. No, they're individual pieces. They are not tied together.
So I have to go and change both of them?
You would have to change both, yes.
Which I do now, but I pull them together and then I you know, change the border.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I
you can do that too.
And then I bring down the vertices to where I need it, and then on both of them they do the same thing, and then they're both changed.
Yeah. Yeah, just because you see it, I mean, you can build that boundary layer however you want. If you just want it just to be lines and you only highlight what's in those lines, you can do that too, and then it's changing both borders at the same time. But we just didn't go into that detail with this.
Okay, because we have a lot of changes now that, well, we've had a lot before, but we haven't, every so often, we did one I think last week or so, we had to change the border. So.
Well, it's not automated. Sometimes you have to work.
People that are.
I know.
Yeah, well, I will need. I like to go along the borders of a plot rather than just in the middle of somebody's land like that. So.
Oh, I understand. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it would match on the other one, but I'd have to know where that point is. So I'd have to bring them together.
Yeah, and you can see everything. It's just that you're not seeing everything right now. And that's one where you'd want to see everything that's adjacent to that, and you can do.
Well, then I would select both nodes. Select both nodes, and they show up, and then change the two borders, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have all those, and now you can see the overlap. But you would
So
know.
when you change the node boundary, do you want to change all the elements within that boundary?
If it overlaps, yes, you would. If it's say like this piece of equipment is in this node, but then you change the boundary and then it's not, you would have to change that. But you can easily do that by selecting that new boundary and selecting everything in that boundary, and then you change the node. So you can mass select everything based on a boundary. Okay. So it's a little faster. Because that's when you'd use your select features or your select by location. You select all of the coax or all the poles or whatever based on this node boundary, and then you change all of the features in that one column, and it would be that node boundary. So you want all the coax equipment that's within this MBJ 011. So you select your coax equipment, and you select the node boundaries, use the selected features, and it's going to select 011. So then you have all of those. I guess that'd be 012. But where you have selected, whichever boundary you have selected, all those coax pieces, all those equipment is in that boundary. And you want it to be in that work order or account code, or if you want to change the station ID, whatever you're going to call it, in that boundary. You change it all at once based on the attributes. Like now, station ID,
Usually it's a new build, so we don't have to change a lot of that cable over to the other one. It's just adding something that goes right up to some edge that was actually in the other node.
Right. They've made it so you can easily change things in mass amounts based on a selection, or you can just select it on your own if you only want to select certain things. You can select based on a lasso. You only want those. But you only want to see the coax equipment, so you would unselect everything that's not that. So you go back to your table of contents, your selection. You only want to see the equipment, you don't want to see the cable, you don't want the path, and you don't want the support structures. Of course, it goes slowly. You don't want the node boundary. So then you only have your equipment there. You open those select features, and that's all you have because you base it on a selection with a select by lasso, select by polygon, select by circle. You want everything in this area shooting out from this one pole. You just eliminate what you don't want to select, you change the features of it, and it's done. Lots of tools to do whatever you like.
Yeah, it'll take some time to figure out what these things do.
It's a little different, yes, and there is a learning curve, but once you figure it out, it becomes very useful. And it's with the addition of the CrescentLink, it becomes more of an intelligent tool than AutoCAD.
Okay, but once we have the entire island drawn and stuff like that, how slow does it get when you try to maneuver around within the drawing?
So as these layers are built, as they're put in, there are many attributes, and one of those attributes is your view scale. So for this path access, if you look in here, you can see that it has a check mark. It's on, but it's grayed out. And the reason for that is you can only show it when it's less than 2,500 feet from a vertical point. So for that reason, because there is so much equipment there, you decide at what level you want to see everything. So you don't want to see any of the path access, like your manholes and all of that, until you're closer than 2,500 feet from the ground. But you're not going to see any of that if you're out past that. So you can do that for each layer. So all of your customer points, which gets to be like the highest number, all of your poles, you only want to see it when you're less than 2,000 feet up. That's the only time you want to see it. You know it's there, and you have to zoom in to actually physically see it. But so it's not so crowded and so there's not so much data, you can tell it what to have on and off at certain elevations. And that speeds things up.
Okay.
Same way they do the same thing. Go ahead.
So performance in this is the same thing as like in AutoCAD. The amount of memory you have really affects the speed at which you can work.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. But that's why if you're working on something you don't need all these layers on, you can turn them off, and then it speeds things along. Everything is there, but because you're not seeing it, it's not using that visual cache to kind of bog everything down.
So
yeah,
is there an amount of memory recommendation for for the configuration we're building?
Yes, there is. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but yeah, there's a minimum recommendation amount. But they should have gone over that when they got all this equipment, all the software. Because yeah, our laptops run a lot slower than our desktops because they're just not built for that. It doesn't say it can't run, but it runs a lot slower and you have more crashes and things of that sort. And I don't know what the minimum amount is.
That depends on the laptop.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You realize you can get a full-blown desktop in a laptop today.
Yes, I'm aware, but with ours, it's not that way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a higher-end laptop, you can run it no problem. But just as an example, the two different types of computers, they're more mobile-friendly, and our desktops right now are not. So they're a little more heavy on the hardware in the desktops than they are the laptops here. But that's right, you said. It's not always the same.
And I would assume that the minimum requirements and stuff, if you actually want performance, you need to double them. Because that's what's necessary in AutoCAD.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's not. AutoCAD is different in how it how lines and different things perform. It's drawn the same way, all tiny line segments, but not each one is an individual entity. So that's kind of what slows down AutoCAD when things are moving around. All the little parts and pieces that make up everything, this is not the same. So it's a little faster in that respect, but not much. The thing that bogs this down is all the orthophotography and all the other land-based type items. All your text for your roads, all your road layers and center lines, all that is what bogs it down, not the little bits and pieces of every line. So it's similar, but not the same.
Speaking of road, the information for roads, I don't see any of that on here. Where is that going to fit now?
If we have the center lines in here, then it'll populate where it lives. I could add the center lines. What's that?
They're getting ready to name all the roads here, and then all the plots are going to be changed to different numbers and so on. So,
wow.
I guess they're going to put the route number so that we can actually have people use GIS locations to find their way around.
Well, that would be something that they'll have to add after the fact if they're changing road. I mean, you could change them as they go. If you have, so in your AutoCAD maps, you have a road layer.
Yes, I do. And then I have whatever name the road is and the route number. There's a U.S. number, sometimes there's a local number, and sometimes it just has a name that everybody knows it by or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And those are going to be changing, from what I understand, to actual names of roads and route numbers.
Cool. See, we have something we use a lot. It's called Tiger data, which is street maps for the majority of the planet. Some things are not there. So, but it gets very heavy. Sometimes we'll zoom in a particular client's area, cut that map, and just use what pertains to their county or city or whatever boundary we decide. I just added the world street map, and it's taken a little bit. Let's see. Okay. So there's your Sandpiper Lane, and let's see whatever this other one is. So it exists. It's another base map layer, Tropic Bird Street. It's there, but we'd rather have like a CAD-based layer because it's not so heavy. But we can't always have that. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we buy it, sometimes we find it, but that's not always the case. But in most areas, we do have the Esri standard base map where it has road names if you need it. And that's one of those things we'll just turn on when we're making a print for a customer so they know where they're going. Especially contractors, if they don't know exactly where they're going, they can use that as a reference.
Well, it's very necessary here.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because otherwise you're turning by the rock and the truck with that's up on the block next to the tree that was cut down last week.
Well, that sounds very similar to here. Okay. Yeah, like I said, there's many tools involved that you can use, but as Dave said, it gets very heavy on the data, and it can slow things way down. So when we're actually designing, we don't have a lot of this on. We have what's necessary. And then we go to make our prints. That's when we turn everything on and bump up the resolution on everything to make everything look pretty so you can follow it, and it's clear. And just like AutoCAD, you have to clean up the map before you create something with it. So let me turn that back off because it's going to get slow. Let's see what else we got. Everybody still good or need a break?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm good.
Okay. About halfway through, just checking. Okay. So we went over a little bit on the selection types, select features. So you can select by rectangle, polygon, lasso, circle, line. And those are useful for pulling out certain features that you want to just select on. Eliminate what you don't want to see, and then you have your selection. You can do whatever you want with that. If you want to change it all to, this is owned by Tom Jones, you put all that in the address area, the owner area. That's what you do. Like I went over the definition query, you can tell it what you want to see. Covered that a little bit. And here, we'll just go over it again. So for Coax, we have certain levels here of what we're seeing. Coax is shown it's based because of the Coax Designer tool. I based it on the spec ID, the symbology. But in this definition query, so you want to see, looks like that is, what is that, a 50? I forget what the label is. So if you want to tell it you want to see subtype equals 4, which is Coax, and then you say and the spec ID equals, get your unique values, 26. So you only want to see the category 26. I don't remember what, I think that's a 625 maybe. You tell it that's all you want to see. You hit apply. And that's how definition query works. Okay, so that is the 875 is what the 26 was. And that's all you want to see in the area, so you know what you have. You know what you have to, what else you have to buy, install, or remove. And that's how the definition query works. Like I said, you can do that for any layer, whatever you want to see. And when you're done with it, just take it out, hit apply again, and everything is back.
That's useful.
It is, yeah. So you always don't, like I said, you don't want to see everything all the time. You only want to show certain things to certain people, in some cases too. Definition query, the layout view. This is a little different, so we'll go over this. So your layout view, it has the same similar tools for viewing, but you got to make sure you are outside of the map. So when you're inside the map, you double click on the center section. This is the area that has all of your data in it. So if you were in a paper space, say your design area is your model view, this would be your paper space view, like in AutoCAD. You can click on and you can see where you're zooming to. This is the same thing. It's just a data frame as opposed to a paper space. And there's all different attributes for that as well. Your coordinate systems, which all have to match, your extent, feature cache, automatically build a feature cache when you're when the current map extent changes. All those are tools that'll help you move along faster. And you can change all of this stuff if you use it. You can make reference grids in the layout, and that's what we like to do sometimes for our construction drawings. We'll make a grid ahead of time. There's a tool in here that will let you make grids based on your selection. So you select only the cables you want to do. You make a grid based on that, and it'll build a grid based on your selection, and that is your construction set for whatever you want to build. Makes things a little simpler that way than creating your own grids. But so as long as you're not selected inside that layer, you can use this to move around your map. All these tools, this group of tools, you zoom into it, zoom into a corner of it. You're zooming into the map. It's not moving anything within that boundary. It's like looking at a physical piece of paper. And that's what those tools are for. And this is the layout view. But if you want to change that, you don't have to switch back to the data view. You stay in the layout view. You double click into here. And then you can use those other set of tools to pan around within that frame and change the layout. Then to get out of it, select back out. And you go back, changing the whole page. Let's see what else we have. Oh, also within this, this is your view. This is your elevation. How close or far away you're zoomed into. It's a ratio. Zoom out 1200. Zoom out. You type your number in, or there's a pick list as well. You can see how far or close in you're zoomed out or zoom in. As you can see, the further out you get, the more stuff involved. What's that?
Yeah. Our scale is usually 1 to 100.
1 to 100?
Or normal viewing.
It's pretty tight. There. Probably more like 1200.
Right. Yours maybe.
Maybe. It depends, yeah. Whatever your scale is set. So 100 meters, 300 feet roughly, something like that.
We don't use meters.
Okay.
But that's okay.
Everyone else we work with does. I don't know why.
Well, basically the scale here is 1 inch equals 100 feet.
Right. Okay.
Still using metric? Yeah.
Yeah, some of our other ones. And then as a standard, like the default when you set up a ArcMap file, it defaults to meters because the majority of those using it are outside the United States or use a metric system.
We're U.S., so.
Yeah, I heard that. hard for my brain to get over island is U.S., but you know, I've spent a lot of time working in Bermuda area, so that's probably why.
There are lots of U.S. islands. What do you mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thousands of them, tens of thousands, but not that big.
You got New York City. You've got the Keys. You've got I don't know.
Well, they're not that big. All right, labeling. We talked about labeling a little bit. Whatever you want to label, you can tell it to label anything you want. So when VIA labels something, what do they have in their labels? Or say cables, be it coax or otherwise.
Well, in the go ahead.
Go ahead, Mary.
No, go ahead.
Well, the fiber cable the labeling gets really complicated because it needs counts.
Right.
So you can end up with a many line label because of the split counts and stuff within it. The coax is a lot simpler because you're only really interested in the cable size.
Right.
Road
it's
names
not labeled at all.
Oh.
Right.
So you generally have
HFC
footage.
doesn't need any labels because you have the colors, and that tells you what you're looking at. So.
I got you. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we actually need footage by span.
Yeah, I noticed that in some of the fiber, like it's only one, like fiber's only one color. But like when we do fibers, we have different colors and variations based on the size. And that's how we do it. So the same way you do the coax, that's the same way you usually do fiber.
Well, that could drive you crazy with the number of different size fiber cables we use.
Yeah, we've got at least 20 different sizes.
Well, that's just ridiculous. No, I see. It's necessary. So generally, we'll categorize it as like trunk, distribution, and drop, and then within those, they're separate entities, and you have to look in the table to see what it is. So you have a 4-fiber drop, 2-fiber drop, 12-fiber. Distribution cable is 12 or 24, sometimes 48, all the way up to 144, and then you have trunk beyond that. So if need be, we can break it down even further, but we try not to.
Some of our distribution cables 288.
Really? Yeah.
We just label it.
Depends on what you're using it for. You label it. Oh.
We just label it so we know what it is.
Nah, we leave it to the contractor to figure out. We just give them the splice case, the splice docs, and so they know what it is. We do label it too. We'll have the different colors and the variations, but we will label what the count is as well.
Right,
and
but with
Go ahead.
What we're looking for in CrescentLink and stuff is to be able to, within a 288 fiber, to select an individual fiber and do a trace.
Sure. Yeah, you can do that.
So that's one of the benefits of this to us and stuff. So realistically, the attribute of a particular piece of cable is going to have all of the detail in it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So since you bring it up, we'll do that. Okay. So our CrescentLink manager, we click on one of our fibers, trace it out. 12-fiber. You can see what it is, where it goes, and there's not a lot of data in here because all I did was drop in a piece of fiber. You can see what it's traced to.
That's a node fiber.
Right, yes. Goes into the node 1 and 2. May not have gotten that, but when I did the coax, it traced through, and you can see where all of that goes. And yeah, so when you have the larger counts, you can trace one. See the distance. You can see the break in the distance. You can identify how far away it is in one fiber. If you're getting a reading of like 3,000 feet and you know what cable it's on, you know what fiber is reading at 3,000 feet, it stops. You can put that in, select that cable, you can trace a distance of 3,000 feet, it will go and flash and tell you where that location is, so you can go and fix that particular fiber.
Okay.
The benefit of that once it's all installed. Has lots of tools like that.
We have 3 different colors for the fiber.
3?
We have 3 different colors. Yeah, one is the node fiber.
Yep.
The fiber going just to the node.
Mm-hmm.
We have regular fiber color, and then we have fiber going to towers, to the cell towers, and that's blue.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's all you need it for, and everything else is in the details. Yeah, that's fine. It simplifies things. And it's just a matter of choosing whatever you want to choose. Hello?
How do we collect information like that for you to build our profile? That's not like equipment information.
What's that?
For the profile?
Yeah.
I sent, so the Excel file I sent has all of that, but I can show
I know,
you.
but I mean, like Maria was saying, you like these free colors that you use for fibers and whatnot. How do you collect that to include in the profile?
That's the profile is just for the coax. We determine our own colors, and the distances are built, or like the kinds of fiber, the sizes are all built into the program for CrescentLink. So that's all taken into consideration before that. Kind of like the profile is for coax, but all that data we needed for just the coax specifically. So I'll show you Coax Designer. This it uses a profile, and you can see the options for the profile, which is where I got all the information for what I was asking from you. General, your distance, your feet, your signal units, your power and interpolation, tap levels. That's where these values come in as to what the values are. This is the generic that came with CrescentLink. That's all I used for this data model. You have your frequencies. So at that level, at 5, your value for the frequencies. Same thing with the amplifiers. Each one, all the specs of that. So each amplifier has different signal settings and power settings, and pad and EQ banks, internal.
We don't need to give you like every manufacturer, every model, every manufacturer that we went to get an amplifier. We don't need to give you all of that, just the type of amplifier.
No, we don't need the manufacturer. It would be nice to have the model number that you use, or the part number that you use, and the manufacturer's part number. That's why I asked for both. If you can, great. If you can't, it's fine. It's not necessary. What's really necessary in that is the frequencies and all the other specs for all the equipment you're using. So the cable specs and the equalizers and the splitters and all those important specs that are used to calculate everything as you're building it in the Coax Designer tool, which is why I asked for that. Need as much of that information as possible, but yeah, it's extensive, I know. But the more we have, the better. And I'll work with CrescentLink to build it as accurately as we can get, but I'd rather have as much as we can get up front than to have to figure it out. Because as you can see, it takes time to build all that. We have to populate all of these things. Each individual part has to be there and has to be as accurate as it can be for it to function as it should. And still, the best method for figuring out what it is in the field is the quality of the contractor putting it in and how much they know about it. And they know how to change things out where needed. And then they make notes on that, send it back to whoever's designing it, and they make those changes as built. This tool will just estimate and calculate what it should be as you're building it, and it can recommend what you should be putting in. We're trying to eliminate as much work as possible, but it takes a little bit of work in the beginning to get to that point.
Basically what they're doing is rebuilding the tables that we have built in load data.
coax stuff.
Yep.
Low data is only, we never initialized the fiber version of low data. We only use it for the coax.
So, I mean, do we really need to go to Laura Lee to get manufacturing those things? I mean, all she would know is who we bought what from.
No, there's a table built into low data with all of the characteristics of all of the piece parts we use.
No, Laura Lee in procurement, because
no, you don't. No, you don't need. You don't need to go to Laura Lee on that. We're going to have the same problem. We're going to have the same problem to a lesser extent and stuff on the fiber things, because we use certain specific splitters and things, and they have characteristics which change your dB loss.
True. Yeah, there's no standard for what a piece of equipment does to the signal, unfortunately.
Latest, you need to check with Laurel and see what she's got on the low data, because there are all the charts there.
Yeah, the extraction process is the troublesome part.
So is the input. But it's worthwhile once it's all done. It's just getting to that point. Takes a little bit.
So Charlize, I'm not sure if you're still here, but I think that's what Maurice wanted to get with you on. I want to see if you could help us get that information extracted from load data.
Okay, I get you.
Okay.
Well, beyond low data and stuff, also a majority of it is actually in the original Motorola manuals.
And you have those already, right?
Yeah, the copy I have. Yep. Yeah, and whatever parts and pieces I don't have, I'll use that to fill in the gaps if necessary. I just want to make sure that it is the equipment you're using. You want to make it as up to date as possible.
Okay, so if that takes care of the copper information, well, what do we need for the fiber information?
Fiber, we need your coax.
Say again?
Coax.
So fiber taken care of, we just need to focus on the coax.
Well, no, I mean the coax is what we need the majority of the information for. From the fiber, I mean, glass is glass for the most part, but we need to know what equipment you have that's all your splitters. We have the node information, the different sizes you're using.
You also, if you're going to do the dB loss correctly and stuff, you need to have the type of fiber panels and stuff in the CO, because the older stuff has a way higher loss. You need the splitter values. You also need the input requirements for the ONTs.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot involved on both sides, but for the coax tool, which is why I was asking for that information specifically, it's not as intensive as the fiber build. I mean, it is to a point, but not related to that specifically.
Now, fortunately, we use a lot less components in fiber.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Now, what about our copper layer?
What copper layer?
The copper layer that we have in the ground that I have to keep carrying.
There are copper options in CrescentLink as well that you can keep track, and you can build that same thing.
All right, good.
It's honestly, I haven't used it, but it does exist, and it's very similar to everything else. Same as the coax, same as the fiber. It's built along the same basic way.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, our biggest issue with fiber, with copper today and stuff is all of the buried that's been abandoned in place, because every time somebody hits a cable, they need to know what is it. So it needs to show up on a map.
Yep. No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
And then this new technology that they want to use, potentially to use it, so I don't know. I have to keep all those conduits and everything so everybody knows where they are.
Yeah. Lots involved, especially older plant, to get everything accounted for. It takes a little bit of work, and I don't think it's ever 100%. You can try, you can get close, but 100% in every area, no, it's not going to happen. There's too much layer on top of layer on top of layer. Like, oh yeah, by the way, we removed that. Like, wait, did you tell anybody? No. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, welcome to my world.
Yeah. I had that working for the power company. Yeah, it's like, oh no, I moved that to a different house. Well, did you put it on the map?
Okay.
No.
No.
I didn't. Well, I'm not psychic, pal. Yeah, it happens. It's communication, and people forget, and that's just how it goes. So you
We're
do the best
psychic
you
and we
can.
have magic wands.
Need to order one of those. They have those on Amazon, huh?
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting on about 2:30. How about we take like a 15-minute break, come back at like 1:45? Does that work?
Yep.
Give a chance for brain to relax a little bit. All right. We will do that, and I'll see you in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Let's pause the recording, right?
Should I pause the recording or just wait?
Yeah, pause the recording.
All right. And hello.
Hello?
Hello. Good to have a small break, walk around a little. Plus, we covered a lot in a short amount of time, really. Let's see what other questions we have.
Oh, I got some more.
All right. I'm sure they won't stop for a long time because it's a massive program to try and figure out.
Yeah, it's
okay.
quite a bit.
Yeah. It's okay. To fix this node, it's bothering me now.
The what?
I have to fix this node. It's bothering me that it overlaps now, so I have to fix it.
Oh.
I know it's not accurate, but that's okay.
I don't think it matters.
But you did not save that MXZ, right?
What's that?
You did not save the MXZ, right?
No.
Well, just undo, stop editing and don't save.
Yeah, it would be the same. Yeah. Yeah, true. So what questions did you have, Mariel?
Oh. All right. Well, it goes along with the work orders because that's one of my main things that I do.
Sure.
We have a number of standard drawings that go with work orders as addendum, actually after the fact, usually. So we have like the manhole and handhole details, which are like elevations, and then the covers and the the types of covers. Should be like a typical thing. Then we have the concrete pads that we create. We have pad design. That's usually an elevation of that because it goes along with a telephone pole and some risers. We also have elevations inside of demarc points because we have backboards that are there with the equipment on it, so we have to show how it's either coming through the ceiling or coming from the floor or wall or something to get to that board if the customer requires to see how it's going to be set up. We also have riser details from pole to any whatever we're connecting to. It could be a pad, it could be a manhole, it could be anything. And then we have, when we do large jobs that require road closings, or actually lane closings, because we have 2 lanes here, one up, one down, that's it, right? So we have to have the traffic details, the flaggers, where we're putting the cones, where we're putting the barricades, all of that kind of stuff. So we have a template for that, which I can then alter, move the flagmen around and move different things around. And those things go on a work order for a traffic detail if it's required. In the work order system here, do I have the flexibility of doing that?
I get to run by it one more time because my phone call dropped out when you started talking. So said you had, sorry. I tried to bow back.
Start from the beginning?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go from the beginning.
Okay.
Like I said, we have standard drawings that accompany the work orders. These are addendums to the work orders. They're not the work order itself, but they are drawings that are necessary sometimes for public works and so forth. So we have manhole and handhole design, the covers, whether they're round or square or whatever. We also have the pad designs, the concrete pads that we put the alpha gens on, or any other equipment that we have to build. We have to show how that, the thickness and how it's reinforced, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Sometimes those have risers that go to a pole. We have to show all of those cables, and not cables, but the conduits that are there as well. Then we have elevations for certain customers inside their telephone room or their equipment rooms, where their backboard is, how we're coming in, whether it's from the ceiling, whether it's from the floor, the wall, however it's going to come in and tie into our equipment in relation to all the other equipment in their room.
Okay.
And then we have traffic details on larger jobs or jobs that we have to make a road closing. The traffic details have flaggers, cones, barricades. We use type 3 barricades. So those things are on a template that I can use and maneuver here on AutoCAD. I can place the flaggers wherever I want to put the flaggers. I can put the cones wherever I want. So I have something that's comparable to that in your work order system. Or can I import these particular drawings in there?
You can import the drawings in. You can make it so you can drop it into the equipment with CrescentLink. You can drop the photos or PDFs or whatever you want into the equipment, so you can see a certain layout for a handhole or a manhole, or there's certain parameters need to be involved for a riser specifically. If you have drawings of that, of how it needs to be done, you can drop that into the equipment for a riser or you can put notes
So
and
like
links.
these are like pages that are added to the work order.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can do that as well. You can drop images in, PDFs in to the layouts, and you can, just like you can an AutoCAD drawing.
Okay.
Because normally we'll have like a cover page for our work orders, and then we'll have our details and notes and regulations page or two, and then we'll go into the actual work orders. So you can put a note on there that says see reference to A for specifications for this particular manhole. And you can put a note on there in the labeling. Yeah.
But for the traffic details, do you have cones and barricades and flaggers, depictions of those and all the signage that goes with the flagging and everything that I can maneuver onto the drawing itself, because that goes on the drawing.
Correct. Yeah, you can do that. You can add whatever layer you want. You can make your own layer with whatever entities you want, and you can add, and there are symbols, so I can show you. There's symbology for all of those type of things, because a lot of people do that. So let's see, check on here. Oops, wrong layer. Let's see, so your symbology. Reference styles, you can change things to your style references. 3D, basic, industrial, residential, vehicles, trees. Let's see. Analysis, just for instance. So you can see about any symbol you want. If you want traffic, an Audi, if you want specific instructions, there's probably any symbol, you can draw your own symbol. Some cases we can't find what we want, we'll draw our own. That's a little cumbersome to do, usually try and find something. But in this list and all these references that come standard with ArcMap, you should be able to have something. So utility. And you can drop it in wherever you want those symbols. If you want to do a specific layer for those type of things, so you're talking safety and road regulations and cones, things like that, you can make your own layer that has all that in it. And you can just use that layer. You can keep it as a default in your drawing. You can pull from wherever you want. You just have to assign how you create it and drop it in a drawing.
Can you search
you
flagger?
Should have anything. Flagger, let's see. There's a flagger.
There we go.
Yeah.
There's a flagger.
Flagger, 500 feet flagger. So, yeah, you could.
Okay, so you have a flagger, and you also have, well, here it's not going to be 500 feet, but we can change that. I think in there, right?
See, there's my
flagger.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Nothing here. Everything is very close, so it's like 20 feet or 100 feet, 200 feet at the most.
Right. And there is a dimension layer too that you can use. You can call that out. If you want to write in, you can put in a call out. "25 feet from there." You can change whatever you want to change on the table, the properties of it. Change the symbol. There's 3D symbols. There we go. Edit symbol. Everything goes in, so you have a standard symbol, and then you can go into it further, change an aspect of it. You can add things to it. You can change the mask if you want a mask on it. Whatever. There's all kinds of different things you can do for it. Red, formatted text, advanced. Okay. Apparently it's getting tired towards the end of the day. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's a machine. It's not supposed to do that.
Right, yeah. Tell that to this machine sometimes.
This is your hatching in here. Okay.
Yes, yes, we have plenty of that too.
Mhm.
Either hatching or actual textures. I mean, if you want.
Yeah. So we use a lot of stone and concrete and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. If you really want to do something obscure, which is ugly, but yeah, you can do it, whatever you want.
It has gradients too?
Yes.
Okay.
To an extent. That part of it, it's not like a Photoshop or an Illustrator. It's not going to be that detailed, but you can have gradients in some aspects. It's a little harder to do, but it can be done.
Can you look for a cone or a barricade? Maybe make sure you have those.
Oh, yes, you should have it. Let's check this one again. Oops, wrong one. Let's see. All right, we'll just turn them all on. Yeah. Street, business, military. CAD, civic, environmental. Try that. Oops, they're a cake. All styles.
I mean, it's R's. 2 R's.
2 R's? Oh, geez. I'll try cone. There's cones.
Anyway, here's some cones.
3D cones, whatever. So yeah, I'm sure there's a barricade somewhere. It's just a matter of finding the right style reference that it's in, because there's several. Let's see, survey maybe. No. Let's see.
Did I say street furniture?
Maybe. No.
Well, anyway, okay.
Yeah. Should be some in there somewhere.
There's those big orange barricades.
Yeah.
With the lighting on it and everything.
2 R, 1 R, 2 L's. Maybe? Nah.
Arrow.
All right. It's in there somewhere. I'm certain. Just haven't had to look for it yet. Otherwise, I'd know faster. But yeah. I don't. What other questions do you have?
We've gone through the CrescentLink up for fiber.
No, we have not. Yeah. So.
Get into that?
Yes. All right. So we'll just draw some in. I may need to add a layer in here for splice points. Let's see. No, ring cut. It's there. And another fiber. So to a customer. Okay. So basically, the fiber goes in, how we have it set up, it goes in like everything else. This, if you do not have this, if this did not show up, this is your create features on the right. And it is, the button to bring that up is right here. So you bring up create features. So anytime you pick one of these layers, you want to do something to create something in that layer. Right click, make sure you're editing. You should be editing if you're if you started editing in any of that. You have to be editing to create anything. Makes sense, but takes a little getting used to. So I took some of our fiber. You have your list, all your symbols. So it was a 24 fiber, then I took it to a 12, and I just took it to a customer drop, a 12 customer drop. So you can bring this up. This is your CrescentLink. This is all your CrescentLink tool. You have a network manager. That brings that up. It recognizes that it's a 24. It's not going anywhere. Nothing is spliced. It can show you that, okay, it's going to here and stopping. It's going to a splice point and stopping. But to splice that, you go from a 12. So you need to take 12 of that 24. This is the 12. Splice it to the 24. It brings up this window. It's a connector tool. It's the second symbol you have in your CrescentLink toolbar. So you take 4 of those. We're only going to use 4 of the 24. So 1 through 4 is going to 9 through 12. Use a fusion splice from a 12 to a 24, or you can do a mechanical splice, which you wouldn't do for that, but to go to an MST, something like that, a plug and play, pre-connectorized, you would just do a mechanical splice because that's all you're doing. This is actual fusion splice. So now if you trace this out, you have 6, 7, 8, so 1 through, let's see. Got my splice to it. Let's see. 9 through 12, sorry. 9 goes all the way to this, and it's actually going all the way to there. 10, 11, 12, nothing else is in there. And let's see, we'll splice the 12 count or the 4 from the 12 count into this customer point. There's no equipment. So use the network manager, you click on your splice point, and you can add equipment. Since this is a customer point, we will add an ONT. So we can take this, splice this to an actual ONT, take 4, go into those 4. It's not something you would really do, but just for the purpose of explaining. So in this splice point, this customer point, you're going to have information you can put in. Let's see. So, customer point, it already knows that it is a customer. Status is always proposed because that's the default here. Government building, account code. Work order. Preferred count, if that's what you want, 1 through 4. Comments. You're going to have an address here too. Location. For these points, you can specify exactly what you want to have in those. So you want addresses, things of that sort. This one isn't set up for that. Okay. So we splice that into there. 12 count into our customer point. That's already there. Point. So if you take this again, you trace this, and you have 9, 10, 11, 12. You have a mocha, and you can see that it's spliced into the different ports on the back of the ONT. Your fiber input. So with this CrescentLink tool, in addition to splicing the fiber, you can see the splice table, the splice point. Since this is a ring cut into here, you can see everything that's on that fiber based on that connection. If you want to see the diagram, you can view the diagram. Comes over here, and hold on a second. We'll have to close this. All these tables, they can be exported to Excel, and you can see the whole thing for any splice point you have. You can also view the splice diagram. You can see ports 1 through 4 are into 9 through 12 on a 24 count fiber.
Question, Jason.
What about a splitter?
If you put a splitter in there, you will see the splitter as well.
Normally we have a splitter at a pole or some point, and then it's a 1x8 or a 1x16, and then it goes to the customers that way.
Right. So you'd have, so it'd be based on an MST or an actual splitter, like a 1x8 split for a customer, to minimize fiber usage, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Splitter works the same way. Let's see if I have one.
That's our typical build.
Okay. Understood. Let's see. And 1x16. So splitter in. So 1 in. Okay, and the splitter out. That'll be the other way, but 1 through 6 goes to so you do the same thing. There's your splitter. Port in, out, 7. And you can see the same thing there. If you make a splice diagram table. There. So you can see, close this. Then you have your splitter. You're in from there and you're out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it goes to a specific customer point, you'd have labels for all those customers in there.
So if you run a trace on...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was asking if you ran a trace on the 24 count, would the trace go straight through the splitter or would it stop at the splitter?
It should go straight through, but I'll try it and see. Yeah, it goes straight through because the one fiber 1 into the 12, and then you can see where it comes across, so you can see what it splits to. So all the splitters.
Okay.
You can see based on the splitter, it carries through. So it's a more detailed splice diagram, but you would see it. And if you had all these connected out to specific customer addresses, you would see that in the details as well.
Would you
can see your
still
loss.
When you do a trace, does it also give you projected dB loss?
Yep, it's right here. Based on the criteria that's built in right now, you can adjust all that, but it's minus 12.7 dB.
With the Coax, can you keep track of the customers that are connected to each device or each top?
Yes.
And yeah?
Yeah, you can see where they're all traced through. to a point. You can see where the signal starts and begins, and everything that goes through it. So let's see. For this, let me show you. Think of the name of it. Let's see. Here. Okay, hold on. Sorry. There's lots of different summaries and tables that you can pull up based on these traces. There is a design layout. That's what I was looking for. You can see a summary of everything, and you can see a single cable trace, see how long it is. About anything you can think of to do. There is a design layout where you can visually see what everything travels through. I can't think of the tool to get to that. Trying to find it. We use it a couple times, but it's not something that's been asked for a lot, so we don't often use it.
What I was asking is for the coax or the cable design, you'd normally design with a certain number of customers, right? So is it possible to track how many customers are actually attached to the node or connected to the node, and if there is a need for an upgrade in the plant? That's
the amount of customers. Okay.
Right.
Something you should be able to. That's not something I've done, but let me see.
Okay.
Just to, with the way we design the HFC plant and stuff, this isn't really going to give you a real number of active customers. What it's going to give you is the number of homes passed, because we basically drop taps for vacant lots and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to use it as a direct correlation as far as how many customers do we have on a node at this particular time.
True. Yeah, so you're not going to know. You're going to know splice points, terminations, but you're not going to know if someone's actually there or not.
And you're also not going to know if the house is even there.
True. Yeah. You can tell where it's going, but you won't know unless you actually look in the field to see if it's really there or not. With good notes and customer service, you can input all that data into all of those customer points and say whether there is something there or not. But it depends on how much data you take down and how good the customer service is. Because what this program sees is a connection. It sees that it is connected on one end to a piece of equipment that will light a fiber or a signal, and it's connected on the opposite end of something that will read that signal. It does not say whether it actually exists or not, but it says that it's plugged into a device. And that's the lights that you see, either red, yellow, or gray in a trace. This is the fiber node and all the information created when I pulled this off and created it with the Coax designer. Yeah, to see those actual numbers based on like how many customers there are for it. I don't know if there is a way to do it. There may be, but that's not something we have ran into yet, because generally people know who's on what without having to trace it. But if the information is there and it's all put in correctly, we can keep track of it. But to really know what's on each node as far as number of customers, no. You can house all the information here, but you can't just pull it up and see how many customers are on that. That's more of a customer service management software, which this is not. This is more design and networking, but not actual customer counts in that way. It can only count things that it's wired into, unfortunately.
So if we had a layer with the customer information, is there like a, what's the wording, is there a way to trace, how many customers on this layer provided by customer service that the network passes by on a certain run?
If the service point or the termination point is put in and it's accounted for, then yeah, you can run a test, a query to see what's in this boundary, or you can see what's on this cable, how many people are on this cable. And if it's spliced in correctly and the point exists, then it'll show you that that's there.
Buffer? Like a buffer on the fiber run? Or
yeah.
Cletus, you're talking about now a tremendous amount of input that would have to come from customer service to somebody to input to this to actually put the customer information at each tab.
Yeah, we have house IDs in our billing system. Once we correlate the house IDs to the government stuff, then
yes, but we're talking about a whole nother level of data to go into a CAD system and stuff that has nothing to do with that level of service.
I'm not sure.
Because it means that somebody would have to keep track of installs, disconnects, and would have to be going in and updating this program with that information. Every time you've had a disconnect or a new connect and stuff, it would all have to be put into there. You'd have to find the resources to do that, because that's beyond what we currently are staffed for.
Yeah, true. But I mean, our billing system generates those reports automatically. So we just have to figure out a way to get it in some place where the GIS database would be able to basically read it.
Well, you can hire a couple more drafters, because that's what it's going to take.
No, I mean, like, maybe you, so with the GIS database, it's reading your layer information from a table, right?
From a table, from a static table, yes.
Right. So would we be able to replace that table, periodically or something?
But you can't make the physical connections.
Say again?
The table exists, yes. It has data in it, yes. But to make those physical connections, you still have to do that each time. So if you lose 20 customers and add 10, then someone has to go in, physically remove those connections, and physically reconnect or connect new ones for it to work.
Table with the updated information.
Cletus, if you want this done automatically, you'd have to pay CrescentLink and stuff to build an API that would accept whatever format we were going to send it in and populate it.
Correct. Yeah.
But you'd have to have a custom API built in CrescentLink.
Which would be pushing $1 million.
Yeah.
It would push $1 million to have it done.
If I had a table that I wanted to import into CrescentLink.
Yes.
That doesn't seem like something that would be that hard.
No, you can
you're wrong.
Bring in a table.
Cletus, it's very simple, but you need an API in CrescentLink. So you need to pay for them to develop that API for you.
custom piece of software that tells everyone that table goes to what.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. It would be, it's not impossible. It's difficult to do. There is no all-in-one piece of software like this that does both the customer management and the network management. It just doesn't exist as of yet. Not that I've seen. Nothing that works well. Everybody promises that's all in one, but it's never panned out to be.
So let's say it wasn't automatic then, and I did an export of a report from the billing system, and it had this house IDs as one of the columns in it, and we had a way of matching those house IDs to physical addresses, hypothetically. Yeah. I could load that table into Esri.
Correct.
And I would have a table, and it would have geographic points for each of those. And if I had access to our fiber runs and so on, chose a particular fiber run or a copper run, whatever, and did a buffer on it, it would give me an area wherein I could query and see if there were customers on this other layer that fell in that layer.
True. Yes, you can see that. So what it would take would be a table based on an object ID, which is created when you create something in ArcMap. It creates an individual object ID. In that object ID, you would have to have the customer information attached to that object ID. So your service point would not be an address as such, it would just be an object ID. You bring in that same table, you'd merge the table based on the object ID, and if you had customers that were not there, it would put in a blank. If you had customers that changed to that location, it would put in where that customer is, and based on their location, their address, and how it connects to that object ID. You can merge based on one of those columns. So yes, you could do that. And you could do it maybe once a month, but I don't know if it would crash the system based on how many people you have. It would take a lot.
The other thing, Cletus, is you'd have to actually build into every tap in ArcGIS the addresses it serves.
No, you wouldn't.
That's the only way it's going to know what node it's in, is because it has to start at the tap.
No, but
you tell it what node it's in.
You tell it what node it's in?
Yeah, it doesn't physically recognize its geographical location. You have to tell it that in this area, these nodes are here. But once it's done, you know that these customers are in this node. That's a category in the column. And that'll stay the same. Unless you move one, remove one, then it's gone. If you delete it from that table, then it's gone. Has nothing to link up with. You would have to put it back in for a new customer if you ever deleted it. Better to leave it blank, inactive, whatever. There are ways to do what you're talking about, but it may cost a great deal of money depending on how in-depth you want it to be.
Okay.
It's doable. I mean, it's just how much money you got to do it. And time intensive. But overall, it does not do anything unless you tell it to. Tell it where something is. It can give you a location and put a point there, but it doesn't know what that point is besides an XY coordinate.
I don't necessarily want to tell it what that point is. I just wanted to run a report to see how many of those points are within 5 feet of this, or within 15 feet of this cable run.
That you could do, yes.
Yeah.
Your point exists, yes, you can tell it. You want to say, I want to see everything within 20 feet of this splice point. Something like that. Yes, you can do that. No problem. Within 200 feet, within 500 feet. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
It just wouldn't always be live data.
Right. $1 million. Must be a nice.
It'd be pushing it. Takes a lot of work.
Can you tell us about those geoprocessing features then? Was that involved in it? what do they do? I mean, I get the buffer is like within so much distance from a feature.
Right. Right. Yes. And a clip. Yeah. So the geoprocessing features a clip takes a section of whatever you're looking for and just removes everything else but what you're looking for. What these tools do is you can cut and paste and merge and whatever you want to do for all the map features. Something that's not like, so all your boundaries and things like that, you can connect them. It's not something we use a great deal. We just haven't gotten into it, but there's lots of other things, and it's more coding heavy, and it's more for people who are working with populations and different surveys of areas and more geographical things, not network, not communication based. More how many people are in this radius that are this age, and you can merge the different areas because it's map locations that go together. Not something I'm really familiar with, but if you want to know more, I can find out more. It's not something we use all the time. We haven't had a need for it.
It's okay.
Jason, is your schema set up in a way that when you place any element on the map, it's going to take the relationship of, let's say, a boundary. So let's say you do a node boundary and you are placing equipment within that node boundary. Would those equipment automatically be populated with the boundary name?
No, it would not. Yeah, that's something you'd have to populate after the fact.
All right,
it doesn't recognize that. Not yet. I believe that's in the progress. They're trying to figure that out, but no, not as of yet. You can with the other custom mapping that you have. When you place points in a certain area, it knows what section it's in, so it includes that on that map, so that's close, but not in the actual design part.
Okay. I guess it's just a manual process then.
Yeah. What other questions do we have?
Civisa.
Question. I wouldn't know that. I have to ask CrescentLink about that.
We can go over the toolbox, things you don't know how to do. How about that?
Okay.
One more question.
So, shoot, go ahead.
Sorry. When you have underground infrastructure like the manholes and so forth, is there, when you bring in the coax or the fiber, is it related to the underground features, or do you have to change that differently?
When it's spliced to it, if you splice to an underground piece of equipment, it will know that it's related to that. Go ahead.
No, it's not. No, I don't mean spliced to an underground equipment. I mean, if you have the manholes along this road where MBJ12 is, if all of those poles were actually manholes and is a conduit that goes down the road, would it show that the coax and the taps that are in the underground facilities is a different representation, or is it represented as it is here with the red dashed lines and the green taps and so?
That would be something you determine before you actually design it. So you would put in that criteria before, and then when you create it, it would adhere to that, whatever you decide to make it. It wouldn't automatically recognize one or the other. You would have to tell it what it's doing.
Okay, okay.
Now we have manhole details of all the manhole runs that we have, you know, the B manhole system, the A system, and how all the racking and everything inside and how they're spliced together. Is there some place we can keep that information as well? We have like a butterfly design, and then you show the cable and how it's spliced inside.
Right. I'm not sure within the design if you could house that somewhere. That's something I have to check into. As a rule, no, but doesn't mean it can't happen. I'd have to check and see. It's just not meant for housing that kind of data.
It really should be attached to the manhole as a data detail.
Oh, in that case, then yeah, it can be. In the equipment, it can attach an image, a JPEG, or a PDF, because that then is a piece of equipment. In CrescentLink, you can allow you to attach that.
So you don't
necessarily a map.
You don't necessarily model inside plant.
Right. No, it's all done internal in CrescentLink. So that's when the splicing, you did the splice docs and all of that.
Okay, so I guess the pictures you just put a hot link or something.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So I get if you have a naming convention, let's see for anything. Let's say, for example, your manhole, it has a naming convention. That particular drawing, if it is in PDF or CAD, whatever this may be, and you have it in a common folder, let's say in a OneDrive or Dropbox, wherever you have it, that's in your server or your network environment. We can put a field in here, and whenever you tap on that particular field, it's going to spit out the drawing.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It'll show you. It'll flash up a view of the drawing. Yes.
Basically, I have to maintain those drawings on the AutoCAD anyway, because I have to update them as we change things, and then import them each time they're changed.
Hey, you said you had a magic wand.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said that,
no.
not me.
No, I have to buy one. Mine got frayed at the end.
Okay. Yeah, there are some things you'll have to house and maintain for someone to be able to see it, but it's a matter of the designers and then people in the field if they want to see it, if you get to that point. There's other ways to do things like that, but yeah, you'd still have to maintain the drawings.
Okay.
There are other ways to do that where if you bring up a drawing and you you do something to the drawing, make changes, as long as it's named exactly the same, it's in the same folder, there are ways to link it where you wouldn't have to do anything. It'd just bring up that drawing, but you have to be very careful with that, and it takes a little bit of work. So.
Okay, because yeah, we update the manhole details as we change cable in them or splice something else into something, and you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think CrescentLink and Esri would know more than that, but I know it can be done. And I also know it's very expensive to do that, but it depends on how much effort you want to put in.
Well, it's part of the job, so I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to have some effort because it has to be done.
Right. Yes. Let me show one of the tools that we use a lot to output maps for other people to utilize. Just quick maps that we can do. Outputting some of these facilities to a KMZ or a KML, you can use in Google Earth. That's what we use a lot. So based on a selection, this is part of the Coax that was created. You can go to the Arc toolbox, which it's in this palette on the right, or you can go to toolbox. Geoprocessing Arc toolbox. There's many options in there. You can output things to Excel tables, You can import Excel tables, you export to JSONs, move things to CAD. But this is one we tend to use a lot. So if you click on the tool, it brings up another box. You pick which layer you're exporting from, which you want to see the KML of. You can see down here from the table, this is the SDM Coax cable. You pull that down from this list. It's going to tell you where it's going to be outputted to. You can change that. So we'll just change it to our training. Make a new folder. Okay, clamped feature to ground. Let's see, should be good. Bring that up. So it created a Google Earth KMZ. Most times it works. Sometimes it doesn't. It takes a couple redos, but in most cases it will work. And it's an easy reference. You have something you need to go fix. You can pull it out, export a KMZ. You can take it, pull it up on their phone, track it, and see where it's going. Right there from that, you can see where that coax run goes. You can see what it's near based on Google Earth maps, what street it's on, where it travels, where it stops. And if you have enough, what's that?
Multiple layers when you export it?
You can, yes. You can, we've broken down many layers, and you can export each one individually is what you have to do. But you can house them on a KML. You can send that out to anyone. It gets a little heavy if you want to do like an entire network or even a portion of an entire network, but larger portions just to show where something travels can be done. It's not as good as a survey, but for quick reference, it does quite well.
Okay.
Something else I didn't see. In our pole construction, we have to guy and anchor poles. Do you have guys and anchors somewhere? I'm not seeing any of the guys and anchors on any of these poles.
No, we add guys and anchors, yeah. I just didn't have anything on this particular map.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Same thing applies here for the weight of the line, because if it's going to be new, it's got to be heavier, and if it's placed already, you know, it's a different color. We also have symbology for bonding and grounding. All of those symbols, I'm not seeing that either. So.
Right, yeah. Grounds, we can add grounds as a symbol. We can add as a note within equipment or on a pole. You can say ground is here, ground is there. It depends on what you want. You can display it any way you want. You can add a symbol or not. Sometimes all those symbols add up to a lot in a map. That's why sometimes we just put it in the notes of the layer. And then you can label it that way if you want to see it in a finalized map. You can put ground here, ground there. Same thing with guys. We have symbols. We've been putting those in. We have them for all of our other clients ask for them as well. I just didn't put it in this map. And whatever symbol you're using for guys now, we can adjust that.
Okay.
Because that varies from company to company as to what they want to use. Some people don't care. Some people are very specific.
Sort of like an A with an arrow.
Gotcha. Yep. We've seen different variations, so yes. there are. Let's see if I can pull one up.
And where are your fiber coils?
Additional. Yep, it's right there.
Loops.
We have tons of those.
So there's a down guide. They have some like that.
Yeah, anchor somewhere. Oh, okay, anchor
right.
guy. Yeah.
Anchor guy. Like yeah. Yep. Our additional cable, our coils are here. So it's a little. I mean, that varies. Usually, infinity or figure eight of some sort, or a loop. That's what we use for that.
That's in terms of symbology. How does it calculate when you're doing a trace?
We'll tie that into there in the CrescentLink settings. You can adjust that. You can calculate it out
on each one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have based on that. We'll set up the symbology based on the size of it. So a single loop would be a 50-foot coil. A double loop would be a 100-foot coil, and that's added into the total footage based on CrescentLink calculations.
We also have 20-foot coils.
Okay.
Well, whatever. I mean, whatever coil variations you have: 25, 20, 17 and a half, whatever. Whatever you want to put in there, that's fine.
150. Those are not only on. I mean, I have some areas that they have tons of coils because every single cable that's coming to that splice has got its own loop, and a different amount in each one of those loops. So it looks like almost like a rose with all these flowers around the thing.
Yeah, well, that's different to each client, and yeah, you'll have that if you want to keep track of it. Fine. If you want to note it, that's different, so it doesn't clutter up the map.
We need to keep track. Like I said, here it's a very visual kind of place, and if you don't have it visual, people don't know, and they're, they tend to not read either. So you have to really make sure it's on there so that they can see it.
Yep.
Mariel, it's on this. We're going to have to actually link it to the cable because it changes the dB loss on the cable because it changes the footage.
True.
Well, then it'll have to be somehow that we can add that in.
Yeah, CrescentLink can add that in.
And every time you make a cut and you change it, then it's got to, adjust for that too.
Yeah, within CrescentLink, within CrescentLink, we're going to have to know how to basically cut a cable and stuff and insert a splice because of damage. Right.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a matter of a break. Let's see. It's one of the easier things. So in this split a tool, so then that piece of fiber is 2 separate pieces, and you can put in your splice point. It's probably still, normally it still splices on its own, so it is uncut, but because it'd be 12 on 12, so it just remains uncut, but you would see a loss in there if you have that calculated out based on a splice point. But it's smart enough to recognize that it's the same size on both sides. You're just putting a splice in, you're going to pull something out. It realizes that, and it'll calculate the loss if you have that programmed in.
And now you need a loop on both sides.
And also per instance of the loop, depending on what size, it can calculate that as well.
Okay. So where would you notate that you have 50 and 25?
You can make a different symbol based on it, because it will automatically put it in if you want to do that.
I'm interested in seeing the trace for that.
What's that?
I said I was more interested in seeing the trace on that. So you have the two loops there. What's the length?
It's not, this one is not set up for the coils to make a difference. So you wouldn't see the difference in length.
Okay,
but
so
you would see the break.
it's just a graphic then? It's just a graphic?
Yeah, just graphic.
We can get that built in, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's certain parameters involved for all of that. So your fiber loss multipliers, how many, so splice loss, terminator connection, margin, fiber loss per kilometer, and there's other aspects too. This is one of them.
Hello?
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 Yeah, CrescentLink can talk more about that, but yes, there are calculations involved that'll include your loops depending upon the size and the attributes of each one. I think it's not. Hold on. There we go. Hold on a second. We'll see. So your attributes of your additional cable. Each of those is 75. You can note that, and then you can change the footage in it. And if you want to make a symbol that says that, or if you want to display that when you label it, you can add that as a part of your expression when you label it.
Okay.
Many options for whatever you need. And CrescentLink is always improving their software to include more things of that sort. So there's less thinking involved and more ways to show all of it.
You heard anything about CrescentLink possibly expanding to more than just desktop, probably to also pro?
Yes, there is another section of the company that's working on things in that respect. CrescentLink just recently broke up into two. They have a CrescentLink side and they have a pro and other things side that they're pursuing other options within the same company. So it's called Geograph now. I think they just officially changed this month from CrescentLink to Geograph, I believe. And they have one person that's heading up the CrescentLink Geograph side. There's another group that's heading up everything else. But Pro, as of right now, does not serve a purpose for design. It's great for maps and exporting prints, but to actually design, as far as telecommunication is concerned, it's not there yet. It's getting there, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing on the toolbox, that's just one element. There's a lot of things in there that you can get into for some of the 3D representation and some of the different modeling. There's tools in there that make things easier. Parcel fabric, that kind of thing. I forget what the other aspects are called. We just don't use it. So there's quite a few things we don't use. We haven't had a chance to get into it yet, but when we have spare time. But who has that?
When's that? When is that?
Exactly. So what else can I answer? Got 7 minutes.
fiber. Did you do a copper trace? Do we have a copper trace? Yeah, we did a fiber trace.
Did a fiber trace, coax trace. Yeah. Copper I don't have in here. We don't.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But the coax, there was a flood thing I think somebody was talking about to see how far, how continuous the coax run
Yeah,
was.
that's the flooding. The flooding feature is on the load data that you can check to make sure that everything is connected properly. I don't think they had the feature, but maybe. It seemed when he was looking at
Flooding
the whole
thing?
cable, it pretty much showed the same thing, but.
Right.
So it'd be like a trace to see like how far that, or you would trace
Yeah.
to see if it made it to a certain distance and then know that it didn't.
Yeah, but in load data, it shows you whether the components, if something is passing a component properly or not. If it doesn't, then you have to do that because it's stopping the flow of the signal.
So some of this you can see for the coax trace, see where it stops at certain equipment and what it is, based on the symbols you have set up and the pieces we put in. Mm-hmm. So a 4-port, let's see, 11. See the drops, and it's all created when you create things in the Coax Designer.
Right.
As long as all your parts and pieces are created correctly, that's how you can see everything when it's all installed.
Now, does it have a feature that tells you when you have put the components in the wrong order?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives. Let me see.
You put
trace it.
a DC in front of a tap or behind a tap or wherever it's not supposed to be.
Yeah, it'll give you an error and it'll say no. So let me trace it and you can see that. Okay, it's already built actually. So a DC. As you can see, some of these here, it's giving you warnings that the output is kind of low.
Okay. Yeah.
It's gonna let you know that you might want to look into that again.
Mm-hmm.
Say, okay, for that area and for the signal it's currently carrying, but some of these, because the amplifier, because the settings were not correct as it should be, it's going to give you an error and say, equalizer cannot be determined, the input signal is too low, 4-way tap, the output is too low, you're going to lose this. It should have an 8 dB tap. Let's see, we'll move a coupler, see what happens. It's not going to like that. It'll even let me do that. Maybe not. Yeah.
So Esri's website has like videos and courses. Does CrescentLink have those kind of things?
Yes, they do to a point. They rely more on their actual training, their in-person, or they can, if you ask them, they can send you different videos and training modules if you want it. They prefer to kind of walk people through it in person or via like a net meeting, something like this.
I'm gonna need a person here.
Well, yeah.
In person.
Yeah, in person there. Okay, yeah. Well, they're coming, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. From what I hear, yes. Yeah, so they'll be there to walk through, yeah. And they may have more resources that I don't know about because we call them a lot when there's a problem, but as far as the other initial training, I'm not familiar anymore. I know they were working on more because I asked them to send me a video. It's like, that video's not good. We're going to update it and we'll send you a new one. Like, okay. They haven't gotten to that yet, but they're quite busy.
And how many screens do you recommend we have?
7 each. One big one, and then like 6 little ones would be fine.
And save it.
On each side.
I've got 2, but I think I need 3 now.
Two is helpful. 3 would be nice, but 2 is
3 is a lot better.
one is too few for this.
Yeah.
You really should have 2 screens at the very least.
All right, so when we save things, what happens? Like it updates the database, it updates the MXD, it updates.
Yes, it updates. So if you establish everything based off of a SQL Server database, what you'll do is, that's when it's versioned, you will save your edits here. Things that you did in your individual map, you're saving your edits. And then it will give you an option to reconcile, which is taking your edits, putting them into, because you're in a child version. So it'll take your edits, put it into a parent version, whatever version it's going to beyond yours. And then it'll pull the changes that the parent happened to make back into your version. And then you can post all those changes. So you will post your combination of your version plus what was with the parent and post it up to the parent so they can review it and then post it to the default layer.
What toolbar is that?
Wherever you decide it to be, because with the version, this is just a, what's that?
What is this toolbar that you're looking at?
This is the versioning toolbar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's once you have a SQL server set up.
Yep. Yes, that's where all the changes are in the default version from the SQL server, and that's where all the information stays. And you save edits on yours. You can make changes all day long, but if you don't post up your changes, no one else will see them in the database. So it's one of those things you have to remember to save your edits, then reconcile, and then post. So any changes you made are seen on the base system, the default layer. Because that's the one that's the most up to date, always. It should be. And that's how those changes are handled. You could even, it gives you a explanation of each of them too. Save all edits made since last save. At your save.
Jason, what toolbox is that?
Versioning.
Versioning. I'm not seeing it. I don't know. I guess maybe this versioning doesn't look the same as the one you've got.
Yours is newer, so it's probably a little different. Yeah.
Because I don't see a save button at all.
Oh, actually, yeah, you'll have to add that. So if you go to,
Customize.
Yeah, customize.
Okay.
Commands and then
Toolbars, yeah. Commands and save edits.
save edits.
It'll bring that up and you can drag it into that toolbar. Click and drag. I forgot I put that in there, sorry.
Okay. Well, I think we've whet our appetites for this CrescentLink system.
Okay.
And Esri as well.
All right.
Thanks a bunch.
Sure. And if you have any questions after the training or beyond, then just let me know. I can help whatever I can.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
Jason, you enjoy your weekend too.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.